Both Caesar and Victoria stood and spoke in one breath. "We will not fail, Your Excellency." Then they sat down again. Caesar still maintained the same cold features, as if this was something he took for granted, while Victoria smiled from ear to ear in a rare sight. After Robin received the confirmation from Caesar and Victoria, he looked at Descartes, then Fugon, and the rest of the locals. The distribution of lands and colonization process will take a long period, perhaps a year or two. During this period, a large part of our army will be out of service to build colonies or explore mines, develop the land and other matters, so I will leave the protection of the borders completely to you during this period. Move all your armies immediately to protect the lands of the empire, while Caesar's and Victoria's legions will be there for support if any big attack occurs. All of you, keep in mind that we will remain in a purely defensive position for the coming period. No one will cross that border. The leaf avatar of the Tree Father stood up, affirmed, and then sat down again. Although he didn't show the same degree of submissiveness as the rest, he was good enough to be overlooked. "Yes, Your Excellency, all our armies will move, even the reserve ones." Fugon spoke on behalf of the rest in an uncertain tone. It felt strange that he would be protecting invaders as they colonized the land of his ancestors, but he had no other choice. He had already chosen a side. The good thing about it now is that the backs of the tribes have become protected and they no longer have to fear moving their entire army in one direction so that Tree Father does not attack another from the other side. For example, Fugon was afraid to move his entire army to attack Tree Father Hoffenheim because he was afraid of Tree Father Descartes. The rest of the tribes likewise participated with approximately half of their armies, but now they can move their entire army without worry. It's a strange feeling for them to have a safe rear that one can overlook. Robin nodded at them and then turned his gaze to Billy. "You will be responsible for providing the local people with weapons and talismans, giving them all the techniques available to the public, teaching them the methods of rune drawing and making divine weapons blacksmithing, integrating them into the point system, and also teaching them our language. You can also communicate with any other local tribe and speak in the name of the Empire. Trust that I will not put the Empire in a weak position." Billy felt very happy. He knew that Robin had responded to his request to make him an official spokesman for the Empire. "Of course you won't." Robin showed a meaningful smile and then looked at Jabba. "I know that forming a research team takes some time, but you have something that you need to complete immediately. According to the report that headquarters head Emily gave me, most of the spoils found in Hoffenheim's body are not yet known. So it would be unfair if I used it as a kind of reward, and I don't even know its value. So I want you and old Gu Barnett to conduct tests on each item and put a price on it according to your understanding of its uses. And the price must be in points, then hand everything over to the Imperial Treasury and give them a list contains the value of everything in points. A wooden sword, for example, is worth 50 points, a certain flower is worth 70 points, and so on. If you come across items that require a longer search or are preferable to remain the property of the Empire alone, you have the freedom to decide that. "Yes, Your Excellency." The two nodded. After Jabba nodded, Robin looked at Zara with a smile. "I want you to choose a few trusted members of the Burton family to take care of the Imperial Treasury, and you will be responsible for it. Anything entering or leaving Imperial property must pass through you first." "Okay, sweetie." Noted that. Zara raised her right hand and giggled. After he returned to looking at Alexander with a serious look again, "You will be responsible for supervising everything that was just said. A governor is to say, I want a miniature kingdom on the back of Greenland within 2 years maximum. Can you do it?" "Me? This?" Alexander opened his eyes wide. He did not expect such a great honor, especially after failing to overthrow Hoffenheim for 2 years. "I know it's a big responsibility and that's exactly why I chose you. Don't you want it? I can give it to someone else." Robin spoke seriously. Alexander let out a long exhale and showed a full bow. "This subordinate will do everything in his power to please Your Excellency." "Good, good." Finally, Robin leaned back, then closed his eyes and looked at the ceiling. It seemed as if he had lifted a huge burden from his shoulders. What he just did seemed like a special missions for a limited time, But he indirectly changed this war council into an administrative council ready to lead the empire without him. Yes, without him. The benefit of the empire for him is to collect resources, protect him, provide a suitable environment for his research, and perhaps use it to force his views. If he is the one who has to lead the empire and protect it all the time, then what is the benefit of it? After a few minutes, Robin opened his mouth again, still closing his eyes. Emily. I am here, Your Excellency. The current head of headquarters stood up. Check all the attendees' contributions and turn them into points. Then hand over a list to Zara that includes everyone's names, and in front of it is the number of points they collected during the war. Yes, Your Excellency. Emily bowed slightly and sat back down, already beginning to think about how to calculate something like this. Then Robin opened his eyes again and passed them to the audience. After Emily finishes making the list and Jabba finishes putting prices on everything, you will be able to exchange your points for anything you want as long as you have enough points, and whatever it is you take will be yours. No one will ask you how you used it, burn it if you want, but if you want something for battle or something related to strengthening the empire, you can request it directly from the treasury staff, and all you have to do is describe what you want and for what purpose. And a team of members of the Burton family affiliated with the Treasury will investigate the use of that item later and whether or not it was used in the way it was taken for. Do you think this is inappropriate? We can't ask for more, Your Excellency. We thank you for your generosity. Alexander spoke with a smile on everyone's behalf, thinking about what he could exchange for all the contributions he had accumulated in the war made him burn with excitement. Robin nodded a few times and went back to resting his head on the chair. As for the buds we improved, their number is approximately 20 million or something. They will be placed temporarily at Elizabeth's disposal to be used in building the colonies. After that, a number of them will remain affiliated with the Empire to carry out the tasks of caring for the colonies and working in blacksmithing workshops and all that kind of hard work, and the rest will be priced in points and treated like the rest of the spoils. Does anyone have a problem? No, Your Excellency. Everyone spoke in one breath. Good. Billy, there is something else I want you to take care of. You may contact Alfred Marley and the rest of the administrators on planet Jura to help you with it.
Alfred.
What is it? Billy raised his eyebrows. Not all the soldiers will like the decision to move their families here, and not everyone is supposed to like it either. Whoever refuses to move his family and stay here forever, let him return to planet Jura in an honorable manner, and give him a house within the imperial capital on the central continent. It is time to fill this ghost city with residents who deserve it. Robin spoke slowly. Ownership of a house within the imperial capital. This, Your Excellency, perhaps you should reconsider. If you announce this, I'm afraid that at least half of the army will decide to return to Jura. What's wrong with that? Placing some of our best soldiers in our hometown is not a bad idea, and we no longer need a huge army here since we have the local tribes. They are already strong and experienced, after equipping them with weapons, giving them the foundation modification technique. And some law techniques, I refuse to believe they'll be weaker than our men. Don't you think, Fugon? Robin looked towards the end of the table, smiling. Of course, Your Excellency, of course. Fugon nodded quickly. He didn't know if this was a blessing or a curse. As you wish, then. Billy furrowed his eyebrows slightly. Housing all of these people in the imperial capital was a huge task, contrary to the way Robin said it. There's something else I want you to do, Robin muttered. Just order. He hit Billy on the chest. Robin waited for a few seconds and finally opened his mouth. I want you to gather the remnants of the Burton family from the ancestral continent and send them to the imperial city. Only those with important positions and members of the Shadow Swords are allowed to remain in the ancestral continent. There's no need for that, right? The Black Sun Kingdom is our home and just do what I say, okay? Robin gave Billy a serious look. Okay. Robin went back to resting his head a little, then looked at faces in front of him for about 2 minutes in utter silence before standing up. In the incoming period, I will start preparing for a major invasion. Invasion? Are we going to another world? Alexander said excitedly. The others also looked at Robin with skepticism and some excitement. You can say this, Something big is going to happen and we must be prepared for it. Robin smiled. Take care of everything according to today's arrangements. I don't want to hear anything about the wars of planet Greenland again, no matter how much you soak this land in green and red blood. And here is a piece of good news to think about. Soon I will fulfill my promise and make you all martial emperors. Clash of the Emperors. 3 years later, the steep hill below the Imperial Palace. This underground chamber is the most guarded zone inside planet Greenland, and perhaps it will be included in the list of the 100 most secure chambers in the entire young planetary belt. Actually, calling it a chamber can be seen as an underestimation, as it is the size of a huge apartment with all the comforts and good ventilation with sound arrays installed to prevent any disturbance from the outside. It is simply the perfect paradise for any researcher who seeks quiet and peace. However, the person sitting in it looked like a beggar with his long beard and uncombed hair, and even his clothes were full of food stains, and his eyes were screaming pure rage and madness. This is it, that would be the best solution. Then Robin showed a big smile and started writing something in the huge book in front of him. But suddenly he frowned and tore the page. No. This will make the solid energy layer number 41 collapse after only 100 uses. Damn it! Robin shouted, then got up from his seat and threw it aside angrily. Evergreen, show me that 4-stage lightning again. A familiar voice of an unknown source replied, Are you sure? You haven't completely refined me yet, and these demands of yours are consuming your refinement percentage. Can't you rest and take your time? Perhaps you will be able to find a solution to the problem without using your refinement again. If you kept using me this way, then with every step you take forward in my refinement, you will take 2 steps back. Now this is my problem. I barely reached 30%, but the further I progressed, the slower the refinement process became. If I wait until I reach 100%, it will be too late to create these techniques for my men. I have to provide them with the techniques and give them enough time to cultivate if first dealing with you comes second or maybe third. Robin shouted, clearly completely exhausted. Humph, whose problem then? I'm already helping you and I can't reduce the resistance any further. The resistance increases tenfold with every 1%. This is not something I can control, but rather a law that applies to all of us. Why do you blame me? This is laziness on your part. If you devoted all your time during the 3 years to refining me, you would have reached at least 70% by now. But you are busy creating law techniques for your followers. What good is there about that Nahari planet anyway that you give it all your time and effort? Evergreen, Robin muttered in a low voice. He was trying his best not to scream it here. Okay, relax a bit, will you? Even though it was a closed room tens of meters underground, a ball the size of a watermelon, made up of countless small purple lightning bolts, suddenly appeared in the middle of the room. Then the lightning bolts began to destroy each other. Their sound was as if they were a flock of 100,000 migratory birds screaming at the same time. As for Robin, he activated his golden eyes and began to revolve around the ball silently. This was one of the abilities of the planet spirit that Robin had been using more and more recently. In the past, Robin would try to find a place that was constantly struck by thunderstorms and try to focus intensely on the lightning bolts that appeared and disappeared instantaneously to even have a glimpse of part of a 4th stage pattern. But now Evergreen presented him with a ball of the 4th stage of the major heavenly law of lightning on a silver platter. After a few laps around the thunderball, Robin stood up and raised his eyebrows for a few seconds, then snapped his fingers as if he understood something and went and put his chair back in its place. Then he picked up the pen and started writing again. While in the background, the lightning ball slowly began to eat itself until it disappeared. After another hour, another one is over. Robin threw the pen on the ground and covered his face with both hands, then began rubbing his eyes with his fingertips. Every time Robin took a step forward in his understanding of the truth, his eye became much stronger. Not only did he now have the ability to see 4th stage patterns, but with a single glance he could detect and comprehend a huge number of law patterns without the slightest effort. However, it still took Robin 3 years to get every major law in the army to the 4th level. So far he had finished gravity, wind, water, plants, darkness, fire, life. Deathfire, and finally today, lightning. Although there is currently no one in the entire empire who has reached the peak of sagehood in the lightning path. It is the most popular path among young people because it is a new and powerful branch. And this path has also become more popular after many treasures related to the lightning path were found on top of the corpse of the Tree Father. Hoffenheim. There is great hope for a few youngsters to reach this level very soon, so Robin decided to waste a few months of his time on it. At the same time, he would be trying to find a solution to the fourth stage problem. Yes, a problem. The general idea of law techniques is to exploit a heavenly law in order to support the solid energy levels so that they do not collapse, and in order to change the composition of the body somewhat so that the body is able to withstand the use of this law and that stage of it. For example, if a sage from the path of water tried launching an attack from the path of lightning, the bolt he would produce would first destroy his veins, burn his flesh, and char his bones. This time, however, the issue was not that simple when discussing the fourth stage. There is something clearly different about the fourth stage that makes it very heavy on the body and on the entire internal energy system. Just building the foundation of an emperor's realm with it does not seem to be enough to change the body enough to bear it. It is very heavy and extremely strong that it will theoretically wear out even the solid foundations after a few uses. Robin himself experienced something like this when he used the first stage of the Master Spacetime Law, so he was able to predict what would happen when he felt the power of the fourth stage of the laws. But what does he do to stop the inevitable? Robin had never seen a martial emperor who used the internal energy system in his life, so he did not know exactly what he should do to solve the problem and prevent this terrible consumption. So he had to try to improvise solutions and develop the best possible theories to prevent the consumption of solid foundations when using the fourth stage of the laws. But did he succeed or not? Theoretically, yes. In practice, he does not know. He had yet to receive any news about the techniques he had already finished and distributed to his generals. For people who are almost half an emperor's step to waste months or even years and not be able to break through even though they have such a detailed technique in their hands doesn't seem like a good sign. Whenever he tries to communicate with them, they say that they have tried the technique and that it is clear that it is effective, but they also say that there is something complicated that they do not know, something that prevents them from reaching the next level. Finally, another one finished. Good. Come to my domain and make up for your losses before the next one starts. This time I won't let you go until your refinement reaches at least 40%. Evergreen's voice echoed again. Robin ignored her completely. Then after a few minutes he stood up with a jump, cracked his neck left and right, and began to do some simple stretches. I know you are used to having a visit from me after every technique I finish, but not this time. With this fourth stage of the major heavenly law of lightning technique done, I have now finished all of the Empire's major techniques. It's time to see what they did with my techniques. Then he took the book in his hand and walked towards the metal door of his room. Hold on right there, you can have a walk if you want, but at least change your dirty clothes. Okay. My master shouldn't appear like this in front of people. Robin looked at his clothes and ran his hand over his face, then changed his direction towards the bathroom. For the past 3 years, he has not left this room. Food comes to him every day through a special slot under the door, and whenever he finishes a technical book, he invites Zara to take the book and make copies of it and distribute them to people at the top of the sagehood realm. And since she is his adopted daughter, he will not care much about his appearance in front of her. But if he were to go out now, he must appear as an emperor. Evergreen, tell me the truth, why can't my men break through to the martial emperor's realm? Is there something I overlooked? I refuse to believe that there is something about those laws that has escaped my eye of truth. Robin spoke in a low voice while taking a shower. These 3 years weren't kind to him. Sorry, future master, you determine the path and I help you walk it. That's the deal, hee. The sound of a giggle rang out. He was silent for a while, then muttered, At least tell me if the path I took was correct so that I wouldn't lead us both towards a cliff. This time, however, Evergreen didn't even bother to respond sarcastically. Robin was left bathing in complete silence. A few minutes passed in silence. Robin came out of the bathroom and began to put on his new clothes. At this moment he finally heard a voice in his head. He thought that Evergreen had finally decided to give him a hint. But then he heard, "Your Excellency, this is Alexander speaking. I have broken through to the Martial Emperor's realm and I request to set a meeting as soon as possible." A few seconds later, in a luxurious house next to the Imperial Palace. "Alexander, where are you?" Robin pushed the door like crazy and shouted as soon as he entered. His hair was still wet from the shower. "Your Excellency." Alexander, who was standing in the middle of the hall with a few people around him, was shocked by Robin's sudden appearance. He sent His Excellency a mental message just seconds ago to ask to schedule an appointment, but he didn't respond and instead, he came immediately. Alexander quickly bowed towards Robin and the people standing with him also bowed, before respectfully asking for permission and departing, leaving Robin and Alexander alone. "You did not have to come yourself to my humble abode, Your Excellency. You should have just informed me and I will come to you myself." Alexander pointed towards the main seat in the hall. This multi-story house was specially built on the hill to be the headquarters of Commander-in-Chief Alexander since he knew that the war here would be prolonged. He ordered the construction of a house with several floors so that the lower floor would contain his office and where he would meet his subordinates, and the upper floors would be the residence of him and his family, whom he had brought from planet Jura to live with him here. Robin took quick steps towards the main seat as if he were walking on air. "Here we sit, let's talk quickly. How did you break through now? What kept you from breaking through all this time? Did you find a problem with the technique and fix it? Find a problem with Your Excellency's technique and fix it. I'm not that smart, Your Excellency. It is just... Alexander moved slowly and found himself a seat next to Robin. He seemed lost for a moment, not knowing what to say. "You are what?" Robin furrowed his eyebrows. "Okay, let's leave the details aside for now. Tell me, how does it feel to be a martial emperor?" "I'm afraid I still don't know this feeling." Alexander got these words out with difficulty and scratched his head. "Alexander, I know we've become close since you're my second in command, but we're not close enough for you to pull me out of my seclusion with a joke like that. Did break through? Yes or no?" Robin looked a little angry now. Alexander rubbed his eyes for a moment as if he didn't know where to start. He really didn't know since he was just asking for a visit and didn't expect to see Robin in front of him now. "Sigh, Your Excellency, please send your soul sense to check my energy gathering center. I'm going lessen my defenses." Although this request somewhat shocked Robin, he did as he was told, and as soon as he touched Alexander's energy gathering center with his soul sense, he quickly stood up and shouted, "This." Alexander's energy gathering center contained 41 solid energy layers, meaning he had truly broken through to the Emperor realm. But solid layer no. 41 is very strange. Up to the 40th layer, all the energy solid layers are equal in dimensions, so they form the shape of a tower, as the single floor and its columns are made by part of heavenly law, and what is inside each floor is pure energy in the liquid state waiting to emerge for consumption. The difference between the first 40 floors is that each level contains a part of the law that is higher than the one below it, and therefore it is stronger and can compress a greater amount of liquefied energy within it, and enables the body to withstand the use of that new part of the law without being harmed. As for the 41st floor, it has changed this concept. It is simply enormous in size. The 41st solid layer is dozens of times wider than the one right below it, and the distance between the 40th floor and the 41st, which is known as the pillar area, is now also dozens of times greater than the distance between any two other floors. If the solid layers previously resembled a tower, now they resemble a mushroom. Foundation no. 41 alone can store many times more energy than all the previous foundations combined. Robin muttered in a low voice, still fully focused on examining Alexander's energy gathering center. "This isn't entirely shocking to me, after all. This is the solution I came up with in order to prevent the destruction of solid foundations while using the fourth stage of the laws. I had to recommend making the foundation itself larger to withstand the pressure of withdrawing a huge amount of energy while using the fourth stage. And I spent months on each technique writing how to implement this theory without problems, but it was supposed to be 1 or 2 times larger at most. This is simply, how did foundation number 41 eventually reach this size?" "Alexander, Did you do something unscripted in the technique you received? Alexander shook his head. No, Your Excellency. I did nothing additional and did not even implement Your Excellency's plan to strengthen the foundation. When I started experimenting and when I started compressing the pillars using the fourth stage of the major heavenly law of the wind, I noticed that the resulting pillars were dozens of times larger. And this too, what held me back for more than 2 years until I completely finished the foundation was that it required the accumulation of a huge amount of energy, even if I was in complete seclusion and did not go out every few days to follow up on the Empire's work. It would have taken me several months to finish. This was not my will, and I could not even implement Your Excellency's instructions. This final scene resulted on its own. Are you saying that your energy center knew that the foundation would collapse and automatically inflated it until it reached the optimal size for use? Robin suppressed his sense of humor and leaned back in his chair. It seems I was complicating matters more than I should have. At this moment, Robin remembered a conversation with Jabba about the origin of humans, in which they talked in length about the discovery of the internal energy system in all planets without communication between them and how the internal energy system is almost identical in all planets. At that time, Robin concluded that the internal energy system was an unavoidable reality due to the existence of the energy gathering center as a separate organ in the body, and that its discovery was only a matter of time. But thinking about it, couldn't a person on another planet exploit the energy gathering center in another way? Why did they all adopt this method of pillars and solid foundations? What if the energy gathering center has a certain way that it must be used and cannot be used otherwise? Is this why the internal energy system is identical everywhere? Maybe he should stop thinking of it as a process and think of it as if he were treating a whole body part. For example, no one tells the liver what it should do if one drinks a lot of wine or eats a lot of sugar. It acts as it sees fit. Until this moment, there were 2 techniques that everyone relied on when breaking through to the higher level. A technique to absorb the surrounding energy, and a technique that tells him the details of the law with which he will build his pillars. So why complicate the matter now and suddenly create a way to break through? Maybe he was really thinking too much. Alexander did not notice the state of enlightenment that Robin had entered. At this moment he said anxiously, "But is this safe? Your Excellency, you must be thinking what I am thinking as well. What will happen to me now? You are afraid that the 41st foundation will collapse due to its huge size and perhaps destroy all the other foundations below it on the way, right? This almost drove me crazy in the last 3 years as well and made me recommend the 3-fold increase inside only. But it seems that thinking about it is of no use. You can see how stable the foundation is, so there is no need to panic. Secondly, if this sight was caused by my technique, I would be as worried as you are, but you said yourself that this happened naturally. Whatever caused this, you have to believe that everything around you wants you to become stronger and does not want to harm you, at least when it comes to energy levels." Robin spoke confidently, after what he heard from Evergreen and after seeing so many similar incidents throughout his life. This judgment was a foregone conclusion. But what about level 42 and above? Will they all be like this? Will the first 40 foundations bear this heavy load as I proceed? Alexander furrowed his eyebrows, clearly worried still plaguing him. Look, as long as this happened naturally, it is clear that you will be fine as long as you are in the Martial Emperor realm. But most likely the upper realm, starting from the 51st foundation, will witness a fundamental shift in the internal energy system that turns it upside down. That's if the foundation pillar thing will still exist by then. Leave this for its time. Just know that you have nothing to worry about for now. Robin waved. If there are still foundations, will they really collapse? Alexander panicked. I said leave it alone already. Robin stared into Alexander's eyes. Man, you achieved your dream of becoming a martial emperor, but you're worried about what will happen in the post-emperor realm. We haven't even chosen a name for that realm yet. Ha ha ha, as long as your excellency is among us, crossing the emperor's barrier is only a matter of time. Thank you for everything. Alexander paused and bowed again, this time coming from his whole heart. All right, sit down already. You're ruling my empire on my behalf. Maybe it is I who should thank you. Robin laughed out loud and spoke with relief. But I must admit, you worried me at first. You made me think you failed to break through or something. Haha, today we should celebrate. What now? Robin cut into his laughter. Sigh, Your Excellency, allow me to perform an attack with the fourth stage of the wind law. Alexander shook his head. You want to show off, huh? Well, let's go to a training zone. Robin stood up and laughed. He too wanted to see this sight. As for Alexander, he laughed sarcastically and raised his hand. There is no need to go anywhere. His aura began to strengthen, and it was clear that he was really intending to launch a massive attack. Alexander, stop immediately. You must realize how powerful the fourth stage of the wind law is. Do you want to blow your house apart? Robin shouted at Alexander, who thought he was going crazy, and quickly took out his black spear, ready to destroy the massive attack as soon as it came out. But what happened next was fart sound. The black spear tip hit the ground after Robin's grip on it weakened. The sound of it touching the ground was as simple as a pen falling from a table, but because of the silence in the place, Alexander felt it was a bomb, and he closed his eyes when he heard it. I'll pretend you didn't mean it and wait for the explanation. What was that? Robin finally spoke with half-closed eyes. Sorry about the sound. Alexander scratched his knee. The situation was very awkward. Alexander, my dear governor. What the hell was that? Robin repeated, his eyes turning golden this time. Hey, I'm sorry that I made myself appear so weak. I know Your Excellency is expecting much more from me, but there's nothing I could do about it. This is what happens when I try to use the fourth stage of the major heavenly law of wind. Alexander sighed, then returned his hand and repeated the same attack again. Once again, a deadly aura gathered around Alexander. It seemed as if he was preparing to shoot a compressed air cannonball strong enough to destroy the entire hill. But suddenly that powerful aura disappeared again, as if it had never existed, and what came out of his hand was a handful of air, barely enough to extinguish a candle. Robin slowly took 2 steps and took Alexander's hand. Do it again. This time he detected something and wanted to confirm it. The patterns of the fourth stage of the major heavenly law of wind emanate from your body and gather around you for a moment in preparation for the attack, which is what gives you this heavy aura. But they soon disappear again. Robin muttered, then let go of Alexander's hand and sat back down unconsciously. After a few minutes, he looked at Alexander again. You obviously know that this will happen. What exactly do you know about this phenomenon? To tell the truth, I was able to form Foundation number 41 and break through to the Martial Emperor's realm around a week ago. When I felt the huge amount of energy in the Energy Gathering Center, I quickly went out to try my new power, but when I thought about trying the simplest 4th level attack, this happened. That's why I told Your Excellency that I still don't know what it feels like to be a Martial Emperor yet. Alexander shrugged his shoulders. Honestly, I was terrified by the idea that I had done something wrong, and I did not want to inform Your Excellency of this failure directly. So I contacted Your Excellency's disciple Jabba to tell him what had happened with me. But when I learned from him that he was facing the same problem, I thought that perhaps the 41st Foundation itself had issues, and this is what causes this phenomenon. So I immediately decided to contact Your Excellency to find a solution. Jabba is facing the same problem. He also broke through to Martial Emperor's realm. Robin finally opened his eyes. Yes, according to what I understood from him, he broke through about a month or 2 before me, but he failed to use the 4th stage of the major heavenly law of gravity. So he kept it quiet because he saw it as a disgrace and decided to look into the issue himself. I felt that he was immensely relieved when I told him that the same problem happened to me. That stubborn bastard. How could he not contact me about a problem like this? Robin hit the seat of his chair. Then he inserted his soul sense into his voice ring. What are you currently doing? Do you have anything important on your hand? Master. No, I'm looking into a few simple things, but I can leave them aside for a moment. How can I help you? Oh, are you looking into how to use the 4th stage of the major heavenly law of gravity? Come to me. I'm at Alexander's house. Did Alexander tell you? You don't need to worry yourself about this, Master. You may continue coming up with techniques for the laws, and I will definitely find a solution for this problem. Now, Jabba. Yes. After Robin finished speaking, he withdrew his soul sense from the voice ring as he leaned his head on the back of his seat and closed his eyes. It was clear that he was immersed in thought. Alexander did not know that Robin had sent Jabba to come, but seeing Robin like this, Alexander also remained sitting silently next to him without saying a word. After a few minutes, "Master." Jabba entered and bowed towards Robin, then straightened his back and gestured with his eyebrows beside him. "Brother Alexander." "Brother Jabba." Alexander nodded to Jabba as well. "Let's get straight to the point. Alexander here doesn't seem to have much to say about the failure in using the fourth stage. You broke through months before him and you have the eye of truth, so you must have noticed a thing or two. What exactly is going on? Is there a problem with Foundation number 41? Is it a problem with the law technique books I handed you?" Robin opened his eyes, motioned for Jabba to sit down, and immediately began to ask. A certain feeling of guilt could be detected in his questions. Jabba shook his head. "No, the technique books you handed over to us contain pure information on the fourth stages of the laws, and on the back cover you wrote a recommendation that we build Foundation No. 41 differently from what we are accustomed to and described in details how should we do that. But perhaps Alexander told you we don't have a chance to use those recommendations because Foundation No. 41 took such a gigantic form against our will. I guessed that the interaction of the fourth stage of laws with the energy gathering center might be causing this automatically. I don't know yet. The important thing is that without that recommendation that we didn't even use, the books you handed over to us only contain your understanding of the fourth stage of the laws, which is impossible to have any issue. My understanding about the fourth stage of the laws. Robin rubbed his forehead. Is there something wrong with them? There is no need to think too much, Master. We know that you will not mess with us and hand us defective techniques. I now can see a fraction of what you usually see, and I know that it is impossible for your eyes to deceive you and give you false information. This is why I thought that the problem might be only with me because of the transformation of my body. This theory crumpled when I found that Brother Alexander had the same problem. We both did everything normally, and if there was a defect, it was something we completely did not know about previously. Jabba smiled. "So I've been busy lately conducting some experiments. And the result was..." Robin stopped rubbing his forehead for a moment. "Nothing." Jabba shook his head again. "You may have heard or even seen what happens when we use the fourth level. The good thing is that currently Alexander and I can use stages 1 through 3 without problems. And because of the huge amount of energy stored in Foundation number 41, we now can fight for days using the third stage of the laws without any fatigue. And the speed at which we absorb natural energy has also increased several times. In short, neither of us has grown stronger nor has we weakened either. The only thing that has been affected is the period in which we can fight with our full strength. It has increased from 1 hour to 3 days and nights." Robin hit his thigh hard angrily. "How marvelous! How wonderful! You retained your old strength, but now you can fight for a longer period of time. What is the good news about this? Is the Emperor's domain just an extra energy reserve? I refuse to believe this. You must feel the extent of the power of the fourth stage of the laws. How can we be satisfied with this result? Have you known the cause of the problem yet or not? I know why we can't use the fourth stage, I just don't know the reason behind why." Robin did not seem to understand anything and looked at Alexander, who in turn shrugged. "Let me explain. When a person at the top of the sage realm, for example, thinks about carrying out a powerful attack, what must be available? 1. The necessary knowledge of the law, plus 2. The energy needed to carry it out, plus the transfer of energy from the energy gathering center to the limp with which he intends to attack, correct? The problem that Alexander and I faced was that we had the necessary knowledge of the fourth stage and we had the necessary energy in the 41st Foundation, but we could not transfer a huge amount of energy out of the energy gathering center at the right time. The problem is with the energy transfer system." Robin furrowed his eyebrows and seemed to be deep in thought. "This doesn't make sense. Why is energy transfer the problem?" Jabba nodded twice. "This is what also came to mind when I noticed the problem, so I went back to researching the blood, specifically the energy transmission system in there, which is the regular molecules and the variable molecules. And this time I used the Eye of Truth to examine blood samples from people of different cultivation levels, as well as I watched them while they were performing their most powerful attacks, and the result astonished me. The energy transfer system does not evolve at all with different cultivation levels. Whether the person I tested on was someone at level 11 or level 41, the energy transfer system is identical from beginning to end. The density of the variable and regular molecules in a single drop of blood is always identical for the same person. Then he continued, "Rather, I noticed something strange. There are young geniuses in the army in the knighthood realm who have more molecules in one drop of their blood than old men in the sage realm. This confirms that the number of molecules has no direct connection with age or cultivation level. But I think this may be a direct indication of talent, as those young men with higher energy transmission molecule numbers have better energy usage efficiency and a smoother cultivation path." Robin looked at Jabba for a few seconds. The density of the energy transmission system in the blood is always constant. It is like an early morning road that is almost empty of pedestrians, and then it slowly continues to become crowded until it reaches the point of congestion and everyone stops. At the beginning of the cultivation journey and in the knighthood realm, the energy transmission system runs smoothly, and then the demands on it increase a little by little until it reaches its limit, which is the martial emperor realm. Is this what you mean? Robin spoke while rubbing his forehead. "Did you find anything else?" Jabba nodded again to confirm my theory and make sure I was going in the right direction before I present it to you, Master. "I tried using a fourth-stage attack technique called gravity conjuration. This technique is special in that it requires a long preparation period in order to be executed. And this time I succeeded in using the fourth stage of the major heavenly law of gravity. I managed to produce an extremely powerful gravitational conjuration zone that destroyed a nearby hill, and this confirmed to me that the problem was not in the fourth stage itself nor in my 41st foundation, since it did not even shake, but rather that the energy system could no longer respond to the demands of fast-paced battles." Robin laughed and shook his head. "How absurd. Have you noticed that the energy gathering center does not operate randomly? I mean, since we talked the other day about the origin of the internal cultivation system and how all planets have more or less the same system and the same basic route, it turns out that the energy gathering center itself is the one that has specific requirements to work efficiently, meaning that it must create solid foundations and support them with laws, etc. Otherwise you will not be able to use it in any other way, and this is precisely why the internal energy system is identical everywhere. Not because our thinking is the same, but because there is only one way to use it. Why is that? I do not know yet, but it can even be said that it is one of the secrets of the universe. As we are literally discovering how to use the energy gathering center and not inventing anything new. This is a fact that I became convinced of when you said what happened to you in Foundation number 41. Then Robin waited a while and sighed with a smile. "But now you're telling me that a system this complex has no benefit above the sage realm because of a natural problem in energy transfer. Our ancestors did not face this kind of problem yet. It took them tens of thousands of years just to gather information about a few heavenly laws. Now I have to do this as well as explore a way to move forward from the sage realm within a few years. Isn't this too much?" Alexander and Jabba looked at each other from the corner of their eyes, and then Alexander said, "No need to worry, Your Excellency. You will definitely find a solution. Even if the sage realm is the limit, we will still be at your side." Robin leaned himself forward and rested his chin on the back of his hand. "No, I built on what the ancestors found. All the levels up to the sage realm already existed, and I just provided more options for you. The Emperor realm is the first real obstacle that appears before me, my true test. And I'm not worried at all. I'm sure there are solutions, and I reject the idea that the sage realm is the end. Don't forget the powerful beings that we already know exist, like the Nahari martial emperors. The problem is that they adopt the body-strengthening divine tattoo, which contains patterns to strengthen the body itself. And even their external attacks are through other offensive divine tattoos that collect natural energy directly from the atmosphere, so it will not have to pass through the energy transmission system inside the body. We also have other examples such as the bodies of tree fathers, and even the strange mutation that Jabba underwent. But even these examples are all related to physical strength as well. So maybe the way to the Emperor realm is connected to bodily strength. Or maybe finding a way to use the natural energy outside the body, like using the offensive tattoos. Alexander stated. Robin showed a sarcastic smile. Don't say things without thinking, Alexander. I ordered for the offensive tattoos to be placed under the point rewards already. Haven't you discovered their flaws yet? As a wind user, if you use a third stage flame offensive tattoo, your skin will be burned, and if you use an ice offensive tattoo, your joints will freeze. Your body is simply no longer suitable for using these laws, especially since the human body is very weak. And the changes that happen to your body when you build your pillars with a certain law are only enough for you to use that certain law freely. These offensive divine tattoos are good in one case, which is launching a final attack when your life is at stake, for example. Even the giants who have been used to using these offensive tattoos for hundreds of thousands of years and have extremely strong natural bodies, their bodies still hurt whenever they use them, and that is why they rely heavily on physical strength and divine weapons in their battles. True or not, Jabba? Jabba nodded without saying a word. Robin remained silent for a while, then he started shaking his head. As for transitioning entirely to a body cultivation system, this is unfortunately easier said than done. We don't have a clean body strengthening system yet, and Nahari's body strengthening tattoo cannot be widely distributed because it is more than enough to destroy planets. Although the planet Nahari is huge and the amount of energy in it is incredible, I am certain that the spirit of planet Nahari is screaming now because of the body-strengthening divine tattoo. This is of course without mentioning that the body-strengthening tattoo was originally built on parts of the movement of the variable molecules within the blood of the Nahari giants, and for this reason, if a human and a giant had the same level of body-strengthening divine tattoo, the giant would be much stronger, and I still don't know if I can create a fourth stage of it for humans. While the strength of the tree Father's bodies cannot be duplicated, they have been accumulating it over many years as well because of their natural strength as trees. As for Jabba's hellish experience that refined his flesh and bones, if 100 strong man tried it, then is likely that 99 of them will die. Then he looked at Alexander. There is no need to think too much. I refuse to believe that moving to a body cultivation system is the solution. There is definitely a solution to advance further. Otherwise, how did the all-seeing God and his rival obtain this power? I experienced the power of his laws myself. That person definitely does not focus on body cultivation alone. There is definitely a clean solution, and it is my responsibility to find it. But do you have time to find it? Finally, Jabba opened his mouth again. This sentence from Jabba managed to hit Robin where it hurts the most. This is exactly what Robin was thinking when he finished his words. According to the timeline that the all-seeing God gave him, there are approximately 15 years left until the invasion. How many years will he spend inventing a clean technique, and how many years will it take his followers to cultivate it? When Alexander saw that the hall was silent for a while, he finally spoke. I have a solution that I think will benefit us, even if only temporarily. What is it? Robin replied, still rubbing his forehead. Why don't you distribute the modified body-strengthening divine tattoos to your generals and high officers? Even your excellency puts on your body the third stage of the body-strengthening divine tattoo. What's the problem if you distribute it to us? I remember that your excellency said that it is harmful to the planet, but if only a few hundred of us used it, it would only be an ignorable damage, right? Alexander presented his idea excitedly. Robin shook his head. If I had known that we would face an obstacle like this, I would have actually made this decision a long time ago, but we don't have much left. You don't know how slow these divine tattoos are. Some of the Dragon Realm experts in Nahari are thousands of years old monsters, and this process is something that cannot be accelerated. Not everyone is a talented monster like Jabba in this regard, and even he took him about 20 full years for him to jump from the top of the Saint Realm to the top of the Sage Realm. How long do you think it will take my followers who are humans when they start from scratch and go all the way to Martial Emperor? How many Martial Emperors can I get in 1,000 years? Don't forget we only have 15 years left. Then I think I have the solution for this. Jabba grabbed his knees and spoke. Rely on me on this one, Jabba said seriously. Robin raised one eyebrow. Rely on you for what? You'll make everyone become an expert in Nahari's body cultivation system before the 15-year time limit. You know very well that body-strengthening divine tattoos depend on a person's talent in how to deal with the amount of energy absorbed and how his body deals with the changes. This is something that cannot be accelerated, otherwise it will backfire and paralyze the body instead. I will make everyone experts in the body cultivation system, yes, but not Nahari's. Jabba explained. Explain further. Robin nodded his eyebrows, still not understanding what Jabba was trying to say. Is there even another body cultivation system other than the one the first Heaven's Chosen invented? That day when I forced that tremendous energy to remain inside my body for half an hour, I felt like I was already dead multiple times by the 5th minute. It was only my willpower that was keeping me alive. I kept telling myself, endure one more second before you allow yourself to die. Endure one more second before you allow yourself to die. But after I regained my senses and felt the tremendous strength that I had acquired and the fundamental changes that occurred in my body, I regretted that that period was not 2 or 3 hours. Jabba looked down at his feet and muttered. Then he looked back at Robin. I still remember that damn pain too well, and I know every bone that was broken and every muscle that was torn. I still remember everything happened to me and in order. Since my battle against the warlord that day, I have been daydreaming. Something inside of me telling me to try to recreate these conditions again and try that process once more. That perhaps my body will be refined again. And given the circumstances now, I think this is not a very bad idea. What exactly are you up to then? Robin rested his chin on his hand. This process is impossible to perform on humans since it depends on the explosion of variable molecules. Do you want to repeat this process on the astrals and the dwarves until you accidentally get some good results? Jabba shook his head quickly. Of course not. I do not intend to blow up the entire planet. I just remember what happened to me well and believe that I can repeat it on a smaller scale. This may not benefit me, but I believe it will greatly benefit the army. Allow me to do so. I will devote the next few years to creating an array that simulates the stages in which my body was refined using natural energy. But this time I will use weak energy bursts on the target so that I do not kill him by mistake. Although the benefit he will get will not be as good as mine, it will undoubtedly make him stronger. Time after time he will get used to the operation, and like this, I can increase the number of energy bursts little by little and constantly refine his body until it becomes like mine or even stronger. What do you think? Alexander opened his eyes to the end and looked at Jabba in shock. Then at Robin, then at Jabba again. Robin tapped his thigh for a few seconds. As long as you remember everything that happened that day, as you said, and with the help of the Eye of Truth, your offer is theoretically possible, but... Jabba furrowed his eyebrows slightly, ready to hear his master's objection. Alexander also looked discouraged, as if he wanted to scream. But what? You know what, do it. Robin hit his thigh and showed a big smile. I will not say anything like, this is dangerous, or, it will take too long. Do whatever you want. We will not advance if we do not try and learn from our mistakes. Just promise me that you will test your array first on war prisoners until you are sure of its safety, all right? Yes. Jabba shouted excitedly. Consider me the first volunteer. Alexander next to him raised his hand and slapped Jabba's back forcefully out of extreme excitement. How could he not be excited when he himself was head over what Jabba's physical strength had done to the bark of Tree Father Hoffenheim? That lucky bastard destroyed part of the bark from kilometers away just because of the winds of his fist. Robin kept smiling, watching the joy of the two, but he was not as excited as them. Not even a little. How could an array like that finish and show results before the specified date? Even if Jabba achieved the miracle and created a power system from scratch, would he produce emperors who could stand head-to-head against the Nahari emperors and the Conquest emperors? There are hundreds of emperors on the planet Nahari alone. Master, please remind Sister Zara to open the treasury for me in the coming period. I will need a huge amount of resources to try out my ideas. We may need to bring in more energy pearls from Nahari as well. Jabba remembered and spoke quickly. More. Robin furrowed his eyebrows in shock. It is true that I do not follow the stock of energy pearls much. But there must be a lot, right? Also, Energy pearls do not turn into ordinary stones or burn to ash when they run out of energy, as happens to the rest of the lower-ranking energy stones. Rather, depleted energy pearls are collected and placed in areas rich in natural energy to replenish themselves within a few years. So technically, the number of our energy pearls can only be increasing and not decreasing. How many do we have now? 30–40 million energy pearls, maybe. Why would you want more? Jabba scratched his head sheepishly. Not a small portion of them were used for transportation back and forth between the planets and are currently being recharged. It is not known how many years it will take before they can be used again, while the rest are necessary for the continuation of the Empire's day-to-day operations. As for my array, I fear that I will need to use double what we have now until I reach the optimal result. Do not forget that it is considered a new cultivation system, and it depends entirely on energy pressure. Robin remained silent for a while. You are right, even if you do not use the new energy pearls, there is no harm in filling our treasury. Tell me, how is the examination of Father Tree's body going? Have you started cutting it up yet? Jabba kept up with the changed subject and nodded. During the examination, we found another vault full of treasures. Other than that, we found a few rare resources and insects on its trunk that the locals used to make some medicines and others that increase the affinity of those who eat them towards a certain law. Meanwhile, we have already begun cutting down a relatively young branch because it's the easiest to handle, and I think we currently have enough bark to make a few thousand of these wooden weapons. Only a few thousand. Robin looked clearly annoyed. It had been 3 years, and their progress was clearly not fast enough. Jabba shrugged his shoulders. This is not in anyone's hands. You know how tough its bark is. Only I can cut large pieces of those branches, while the men of the 6th Legion can only try cutting small pieces from the bark fairly large enough to be used as weapons, and even those young branches are still very tough for them. The 6th Legion is really having it tough only to cut a few parts every day. They even brought their families to the side of the tree and set up their own colony around it. I can't put any more pressure on them right now, but the development team is currently working on ways to speed up the cutting process, and they have already begun to achieve some results. It's only a matter of time before they find a better way to increase production. Robin remained silent for a while and then nodded. All right, let those woods be the source of funding for your research then. Talk to the Burton family's merchants and tell them to sell them to the Nahari Union sect. And Robin was silent again and took out a scroll, signed his imperial seal, and wrote something quickly. Then he handed the decree to Alexander. Give this to the merchants and tell them to deliver it to Theo or one of his close assistants in Nahari. They will sell these wooden weapons in other regions of the planet to fetch higher prices. Alexander nodded and placed the decree in his space ring. But a few drops of sweat appeared on Jabba's forehead. Can I refuse? I remembered that I don't really need all these pearls. I will find another way. Robin looked maliciously at Jabba and laughed. No need to think too much. This has nothing to do with you. If I didn't sell the wood, I was going to sell some golden weapons anyway. The treasury needs to be filled, and the market in the City of Hope is now full of space rings and talismans. We have to sell something new to attract customers, you know. I really want to believe that you no longer see them as enemies, and that is why you are sending them weapons, but this isn't the case, isn't it? Jabba grasped his knee tighter. Haha, they are neither enemies nor allies, just a good choice to establish trade with. Where else can we find a consistent market that wants to buy anything we sell, and their currency is the energy pearls that are not found anywhere else? Robin waved with a laugh. Jabba looked down. I wish it was only like that. Master, I didn't want to talk to you about this as I understand how you feel about my home planet. But even though you keep me in the dark at this point, I always keep my eyes on what happens in planet Nahari, and I have some guesses. Hate crimes against the giants are increasing all over the planet in an upward curve, and it does not seem that they will subside soon, and the revolutions of the other races are continuing and even inflaming more. And now you want to sell them weapons not only to the sect but throughout the planet as well. Don't you? Don't you see that sending this type of weapon would be like throwing fuel on fire? If the situation continues as it is, will there be any local residents left in planet Nahari at all after 15 years? Oh, you seem to know a lot about what is happening there. Do you know why these revolutions and the hate crimes took place against the giants? Speak and let Alexander listen and express his opinion. Maybe I can benefit from what you two have to say. Robin smiled gently. All right, I will start with the sect. There have been rumors recently spreading within the Nahari Union sect that the giants conspired against you, the human third heavens chosen, and expelled you from the sect in a humiliating manner because they do not want the lower races to ever shine, and that the elders of the clan stood by and watched without saying anything, and some of them even helped the giants do what they did. This rumor spread like wildfire among the residents of the City of Hope, who love you overwhelmingly and went out in a massive protest demanding to see you again, but they did not find you. Jabba raised his eyes to look at the smiling Robin. Hate crimes against the giants began from that day and accelerated fast until they were completely expelled from the City of Hope, and after that, they were expelled from the rest of the cities of the sect. Anyone who tried to enter one of those cities was killed immediately. Even with this, the anger of the masses did not subside, and they attacked the headquarters of their elders, and high leaders of the sect targeted their families and killed a number of them because they helped the giants get rid of you, so they became traitors in their eyes. Even most of the sect army declared disobedience, and quite a few squads of the army went out to reform terrorist groups and went to target the cities of the giants for revenge. Then he continued, if the leaders of the giants' tribes had not sworn allegiance to the sect, and had the sect elders not also been targeted by the angry crowds, a real extermination war would have broken out between the races in the eastern region of Nahari. Furthermore, currently the sect is divided, as a large number of elders and their families have gone to seek refuge within the giant tribes, leaving the sect cities behind them full of angry crowds. Now the giant tribes have returned to have clear borders and a strong army to protect them from possible attacks from the sect's people, whose numbers are currently estimated at tens or even hundreds of millions. As for the elders who remained inside the cities, they announced they were on the side of the people and they revere and respect the third heavens chosen, and that they would listen to you if you decided to come back, among them the human Orson. Then he looked into his teacher's eyes. If your excellency spoke to the Burton family merchants and asked them about the treatment they are receiving there currently, you would find a unified answer, which is that they are treated like kings, and every time they go there everyone begs them to intercede with you so that you can return to the sect. And they will do what you want this time without even discussion, even if this resulted in the death of all of them. Some of them also begged the merchants to take them on their way back to meet you, but they flatly refused. Information like this is impossible for the Shadow Swords not to convey to you, so why don't you go back and rule them? Only you can calm the situation, restore the balance, and make the sect become even stronger. But instead, you want to send more weapons to inflame the situation even more. Robin raised one eyebrow. That sounds nice. But let me clarify something. You yourself led the sect's armies to crush and subjugate all the tribes of the Nahari giants in the eastern region until only about 7 or 5 tribes remained, and they all swore allegiance, right? They are supposed to be without any personal property or even be able to make a decision without referring to the sect, which of course is represented by the Senate. I literally made them slaves to the sect's Senate. Now let's see what's going on there. They created new borders for themselves and formed new armies. The region, the East, which used to extend between dozens of giant tribes, is now in the hands of a handful of them. Doesn't this mean that each tribe controls 10 times its original lands, while the sect returns to be trapped in the land of death? And of course, the new giants' armies contain most of my innovations and techniques, as since these honorable elders live among them, they will definitely leak everything to the giants so that they can protect them better. Robin laughed angrily and leaned his back on the seat. The sect elders from the lower races took their families and fled towards the giant tribes, taking advantage of the fact that the leaders of those tribes had sworn allegiance to the Senate, meaning that each giant tribe now has a few elders who can be considered their own mini-Senate, and at the same time, they can ignore the decisions of that mini-Senate because it is not a decision of a majority of the full Senate. These elders now live like cattle among the giants, like clowns without any authority, and the only thing keeping them alive is that the leaders of those tribes cannot kill them. Isn't that wonderful? I took away everything from the giants of Nahari and I handed it over to those elders, but they kicked the blessing and returned everything to the giants again, and even in double form, in exchange for them protecting them from their pitiful families. Isn't that lovely? Then he pointed towards Jabba. According to what you said, the entire eastern region has returned to chaos now. The clan is no longer as it was before, and has become merely scattered cities in the land of death without any real authority over the eastern region, or even over themselves. You say I should return to them to do what exactly? To reunite the eastern region that I already united before. How will this benefit me in any sense? I prefer to stay here and continue on my own path. The link between me and the sect is over and I see no reason to return now. Let me continue on your way. I swear to you that I will do my best to complete the body cultivation system. But you need to go back to unite the eastern region under your banner again. Only you can do it. Jabba stood up and shouted excitedly. Robin let out a sarcastic laugh. Sit down. You think I'll be so free because you're going to build a new body cultivation system. Don't forget that I still have to find a way to transfer the energy for the internal energy system emperors. Or at least find a reliable way to counter the enemy emperors, sorry. But you didn't think I would put all my eggs in one basket, right? I'm afraid I'll be as busy as you, my dear disciple, or even some more. I might need a large portion of the profits from the sold wood to fund my research as well, hee. Jabba sat down again and pressed his knees again until they started making strange noises. How could he not understand his master? If he really wanted to go and unify the eastern region under his banner, all he had to do was go himself for one day, show his face to the crowds, appoint one of his trusted followers as leader of the sect, and then leave again. He simply didn't want to do anything about it. But how could he blame him? His hatred for planet Nahari had accumulated since the first day he arrived there, and that hatred reached its peak when he learned what had happened to his son and wife, and was sealed when the sect fell out of his control. When news came to him that the Lightning Tribe had returned to owning its own lands, and that its borders extended 10 times its size in the past, Jabba did not feel any joy. On the contrary, he felt pity for his father and for the entire planet Nahari. Do they not realize the consequences of truly angering Robin? Or do they know and simply don't care? Jabba was searching for the news and then heard it with deep regret and remained silent, hoping that Robin would put aside his feelings at the critical moment and fulfill his promise to that all-seeing person and save planet Nahari from the incoming invasion, but the actions of the Shadow Swords recently greatly worried him. That planet Nahari is where you came from, Brother Jabba, and where the demons came from, right? Are we going there after we finish Greenland? Alexander raised his eyebrows slightly. That eastern region seems very chaotic and would be a suitable foothold for us. What about the rest of the regions? Robin laughed and pointed to Jabba. Yes, Jabba, what about the rest of the regions? 6 years ago, news began to spread throughout the central, southern, and western regions stating that there was a third Heavens Chosen who had appeared from among the humans in the eastern region and that he had managed to build a huge sect that completely changed the features of the eastern region and broke the noses of the giants' tribes with the help of the sect he builds, and that the human Heavens Chosen prophesies that there is an invasion from another world coming to destroy the entire Nahari world very soon. Jabba turned silent here for a moment and then continued. No one knew who the source of the news was and how it spread with such terrifying speed, but everyone had to deal with this bizarre news. For humans and the rest of the lower races, for a Heavens Chosen to emerge from their midst was a great honor, especially since succeeded to this degree and in a short period of time. As for the giants in those 3 regions, they tried to suppress this news and deny it in every way. The appearance of a Heavens Chosen from the lower races is a disgrace to them. Of course, both sides completely forgot about the invasion part. This news was the beginning of the lower races gaining some arrogance. Or we can say some momentum, as some of the settlements refused to hand over their children to do the regular humiliating work, and some other settlements declared complete disobedience, while the attacks of terrorist groups increased several-fold. By reaching this point, this news has become a pivotal role in what is happening in the 3 regions without any actual confirmation. So both the giants and the armed groups from the rest of the races tried to reach the eastern region and verify the authenticity of the news, although communication between the regions is almost cut off due to the mountain ranges, oceans, and even the lands of certain death that lie between them, as these regions were not determined randomly. They had to go to the eastern region no matter what. The giants wanted to kill that third heaven's chosen, if he existed at all, and the armed groups wanted to support him and find a way to gain anything from him. When the several remaining giants' tribes in the eastern region heard of the arrival of people from the rest of the regions, they tried to keep the matter a secret and put in place an iron law that absolutely prohibited talking about the third heaven's chosen and created a fabricated history to show them that they were the heroes who destroyed the rest of the tribes and swallowed them up with their own power. But their lies did not last for a long time. The reason was simply the sect cities. The 7 sect cities were simply too gigantic to ignore, even if they were scattered across the land of death, and all of their residents were of the lower races. Jabba then showed a sarcastic laugh. The giants from the rest of the 3 regions who entered the eastern region set their eyes on the sect cities and decided to gather and attack those cities to eradicate these rumors once and for all, but they were crushed without the sect residents even breaking a sweat. How do those idiots know that this is not just a huge settlement inhabited by chickens and dogs, but there are millions of law users inside? There are also thousands of rune masters and divine blacksmiths. Each of the 7 cities is simply a fortress standing on its own. That small battle announced to everyone that those rumors were not empty, as these cities were impossible to emerge from nowhere without the presence of a third heaven's chosen, and a very capable one at that. There were also those who said that the sect provided shelter for armed groups from the rest of the regions and gave them divine weapons, talismans, and space rings. Some volunteers from the sect even went back with those groups to fight the giants there. But Orzon and the rest of the elders currently leading the sect refused to hand over any cultivation technique or crafting method, saying that they were not authorized to do so. Then Jabba shrugged his shoulders. Of course, those supplies were enough to create hell in the 3 regions, especially since the lower races felt that they had a back to protect them and finally saw hope. So riots and revolutions multiplied and many settlements tried to migrate towards the eastern region. Then what happened? Alexander asked, yet seriously. What happened next can only be guessed. How could the giants' tribes allow such a thing to happen without a reaction? Their armies were mobilized and a true war of extermination began against all the lower races. Any settlement that fell in their path was immediately annihilated. Their leader literally said that they had decided to keep 1 dog alive out of every 100 they saw. Countless lower races settlements were turned to ashes too fast. Although the total number of low beings in those areas reached several billion, and they all revolted against the giants, the power difference was enormous in favor of the giants. And yet the settlement's rebels did not fall short, and they were not that weak either after the support they received from the sect. And so the giants began to move out in standard armies, wiping anything in their faces, and the rebels of the lower races began to move in small armed groups to hunt down the giants, both soldiers and civilians. The words destruction and chaos are not enough to describe what is going on there. And the situation stayed like that until what? Alexander patted Jabba's thigh to get him to speak faster. Jabba raised his head and looked at Robin. Until the absolute atmosphere energy cultivation technique and hundreds of law techniques up to the 3rd stage spread among the lower races, as did the techniques of strengthening the soul, creating talismans, ways to engrave the runes on metals, etc. Basically almost all of the techniques of the true beginning empire. There was also information spread among them about the locations of energy stone mines, mineral mines used in divine blacksmithing, and even some vital zones belonging to the giants, such as weapons and food stores and other logistics. In response to Jabba's look, Robin smiled and said nothing. Deploying all of the Empire's techniques made Alexander realize something, so he shot a quick look at Robin and then fell into silence for a few seconds as well. He leaned his back on the seat and continued speaking as if he had not noticed anything. Information like this will certainly turn the tide of the war in the western, southern, and central regions. The numbers of humans and the rest of the sorry for the wording, but this is according to what you say the lower races is very large, Their numbers are in the billions, you say. As soon as these techniques spread, huge numbers will break through the knighthood realm. And within a few months a large number of them will enter the sainthood realm, and those regions will be transformed into real hell by then. This has definitely turned into a real war instead of a guerrilla fights. Their situation is much worse than in the eastern region. At least in the eastern region, there is peace on the surface. Alexander then seemed to remember something and looked at Jabba. So far you mentioned the eastern, western, central, and southern regions. Doesn't that planet have a northern region? Jabba shook his head. As I mentioned a moment ago, the 5 regions of Nahari are bordered by mountain ranges, lands of absolute death, and wide oceans. Crossing one region to reach another is not impossible, but it is not easy at all. Merchants and farmers are absolutely unable to do it, for example. Only cultivators with high levels of strength can try their luck. But how do the rest of the regions allow the entry of high-level cultivators so easily? Who, in the first place, would cross all these dangers unless he is fleeing from heinous acts or intending harm? That is why these refugees are dealt with firmly, and there are agencies specialized in hunting down any survivors. For this reason, when the eastern region was unified for the first time, the rest of the regions did not know what was happening. And this was more severe in the northern region, as they viewed the giants from the rest of the regions as second-class citizens. And they rely on bringing news from those regions and sending orders on certain capable agencies who send their envoys to those regions from time to time to bring news, since they do not have a means of long-distance communication. Then Jabba shrugged his shoulders. The strange thing is that those agencies did not say anything about the incident in the other 4 regions. There is complete silence hanging over the northern region, as if they are completely isolated from the world. Although I am not sure what is going on there, if one of those messengers opened his mouth, then at least one of the 12 northern tribes would move to arrest that third heaven's chosen, or at least stop the madness that is taking over the planet. Are you saying that the northerners currently live in peace, isolated from the rest of the planet? Alexander furrowed his eyebrows slightly. This is what it looks like. Although I do not have a way to bring news from the northern region, everything can be deduced from the state of the rest of the regions, as the state of war that includes most of the planet can never be ignored like that. For example, if the northern region knew what was going on in the other regions, they would have intervened. And if what was happening in other regions was happening to them too, their borders would have been opened and we would have been able to bring some news from there. That strange silence coming from the northern region suggests that for some reason they live in complete isolation. Jabba replied briefly, then looked at Robin. The question now is not whether they live in peace or not. The question is how information like this was withheld from them, as I know for a fact that even shadow swords will not be able to do that. As for Robin, he let out a laugh. It seems that your source of information failed you when it came to the northern region. But this is normal, since no one within the Nahari Union sect knows anything, and most likely you get your information from there. Take this information as a gift to you then. The same techniques that were distributed to the settlements of the lower races in the 4 regions were also distributed to the settlements of lower races of the northern region. The only difference is that they were told to keep the matter a secret and continue cultivating in secret until the 0 hour came. 0 hour. Jabba felt his heart tighten. May I ask what this 0 hour refers to and when it is? Haha, you should get a better source of information and ask him. Robin laughed out loud, then looked back into Jabba's eyes. Boy, do you want to save planet Nahari from the incoming invasion? Naturally. Jabba sat on the edge of his chair. Robin clapped with a pure smile. Then don't worry about the little things and focus on creating your own body cultivation system. Deal? Yes. Robin nodded at Jabba once and then turned his gaze to Alexander. It's been 3 years since the colonizing plan began. Is everything going well? Of course, Your Excellency, 10 colonies in total have been set up. One of them at the foot of Tree Father Hoffenheim and another one next to Tree Father Descartes Body. And the rest are distributed in strategic areas within your territory. Alexander explained seriously. There are more than 500,000 people who refuse to move their families and settle here, so they were sent back to planet Jura and given decent housing in the imperial capital as Your Excellency ordered. This means that our current forces have reached approximately 2 5 million soldiers, but with their families with them, and there are already a large number of children who have come. And in accordance with the policy of minimizing casualties ordered by Your Excellency, the number of soldiers will only increase starting from today and will not decrease. Robin nodded several times. What about our locals? Have they been integrated into our system yet, or are they still clinging to their old way of life? Has Billy had trouble controlling them? No, Your Excellency, everything is fine till this moment. They have already been handed over everything that we are allowed to hand over. We have reports that the number of law users among them has multiplied several times compared to 3 years ago, meaning that their overall strength has become much stronger, and thus they compensated for the departure of a large part of our main army. And each tribe has at least 40 million people, so in the next 10 years we will see a huge increase in the number of potential law user soldiers. Robin nodded again. That's reassuring. Having them by our side and strengthening them will save us a lot of trouble. Oh right, what are the death tally among our ranks during the past 3 years? Here a furrow appeared between Alexander's eyebrows. Here lies the problem. The alliance of the Tree Fathers and the local humans have not made their move yet, and only a few skirmishes have taken place on the border that do not amount to Your Excellency being informed of their details. This worries the rest of the generals because their extensive preparation means that the scale of the war may be greater than we imagined. But no matter how I look, I see time is on our side. They haven't attacked yet. How strange. I can't believe they would wait until we start moving again. This is foolish, and the Tree Fathers are no fools. Maybe they are waiting to prepare something specific. Robin raised his eyebrows. Alexander, the moment internal affairs are completely settled, send Caesar and a decent army to attack Father Tree Labacon's lands. Yes. Alexander nodded seriously. Robin leaned back completely on his chair and began to rub between his eyebrows as if thinking about what he should do now. Has anyone else broken through to the Emperor level yet? And who has received level 4 techniques in the first place? It has been decided that the 4th stage of the laws will be placed exclusively on a point system, and a huge number of points will be placed on it, so that no one can obtain the 4th stage of any law without performing heroic services for the benefit of the Empire first. And all the books of the original 4th stage of the laws have been handed over for Miss Zara in the treasury to make a copy of them for whoever wants. Alexander quickly responded. Until this moment, 378 people have burned most of their points to purchase the 4th stage of one of the laws, but no case of a breakthrough has been reported except for me and Brother Jabba. Good idea. It's okay. This book contains the 4th level of the major heavenly law of lightning. Hand it to Zara as well. Robin took out a thick book from his ring with a slight movement and handed it to Alexander. Excellent, the Empire's power has increased again. Alexander held the book as if it were a priceless treasure, then stood up and bowed. I thank Your Excellency on behalf of all the lightning users of the true beginning Empire. This is what I promised. Robin nodded. Oh, I almost forgot to ask, have copies of technique books been sent to the demons? They don't follow that point system, as you know. Actually, Alexander hesitated for a moment and slowly sat down. What? Robin furrowed his eyebrows. The books are too valuable to be given to any ordinary demon, and since all the demon kings are hidden on another planet, we sent messengers to invite one of the demon kings to come and take copies of the books. But Alexander sighed and continued, the demon kings have all refused to heed the call. Say that again. Robin tilted his head forward. It was clear from his tone that he did not look very happy. Alexander hesitated slightly. The demon kings refused the summons to receive techniques of the 4th stage of the laws. Robin crushed his arm in his chair, and without saying a word looked at Jabba with a questioning look, who in turn shrugged his shoulders to show that he knew nothing about the matter. Good. Very good. Robin nodded several times in exasperation, then took out his writing kit and began writing something in his own handwriting, then sealed it with the imperial seal and handed it to Alexander. Go yourself immediately to the central continent and give this decree to the demons. If they do not give you a convincing reason, or if Amon, Morin, or Sakaar didn't appear before me within 7 days, there is no need for them to come again. I don't think this would be a good idea. Jabba waved both hands quickly to try and calm his teacher down. I am the one who put Alexander in command, and disobeying him is a direct challenge to my authority. No one is allowed to disobey me, regardless of his identity. No one. Robin raised his hand in Jabba's face, then looked at Alexander again. What are you waiting for? Start your trip right now. Alexander took a deep breath, then stood up and bowed slightly. I'll move right away, and began to move toward the door. But after taking a few steps, he heard a voice coming from behind him that stopped him. Oh, right, before you head off, I want you to gather 500 sages and 5,000 saints for me and send them to the covered training hall as fast as possible. Alexander turned with raised eyebrows but did not ask why. Rather, he bowed again to confirm that he had received the order, then continued on his way until he disappeared. After Alexander left, Jabba looked at his mentor with some fear. The demons may not take this well. Robin leaned back on his chair. There is no need to worry. I know the intensity of their loyalty to me, and regardless of their feeling, don't forget that all the older demon kings swore allegiance to me before they received the techniques that turned them from being herded like cattle into a force that should not be taken lightly. So even if they don't love and respect me with all their hearts as they should be, I am at least confident in the strength of the oath at the moment. They just want to tell Alexander that they do not recognize him as their leader and that they only take their orders from me. But how can I allow this? Do I have to manage everything myself forever? Will they force me to lead field wars myself every time? This is ridiculous, and I should beat it out of them. Don't worry, they will definitely come when they see the imperial decree. But what if they consider the way you summoned them an insult? What if they defied you and did not come within 7 days? Jabba stressed the question. Although he did not know the current strength of the demons, he knew what they were capable of. Although I know about their oath of loyalty to you, more and more demon kings appear from time to time, with strong bloodline and high talent like their ancestors, and at the same time the soul of the older ones becomes stronger every day, and you do not know how long the oath will be effective on them. I'm just saying that it's better to follow the softer method. There is no need. I meant what I said earlier. I will not allow disobedience under me again. If I do not receive a satisfactory response within 7 days, then we will withdraw from Greenland and head toward the central continent immediately. Robin declared in a cold tone filled with killing intent. Jabba was about to say something else but fell silent when he saw the stern look on his teacher's face. So he quickly changed the subject. So, 500 sages and 5,000 saints. Huh. Robin seemed to remember something as well after Jabba's words, so he began writing something as well for a few minutes, then handed the scroll to Jabba. Bring these resources and go ahead of me towards the covered training hall, and bring a few rune masters as well. There is no stipulation of a specific number, but bring the best among those available. Red marigold palm sap, blue sea sand, cloud tree sawdust, the blood of a sage-level beast of the rhino type, etc., etc. Each of these resources is used as inks for drawing engravings. Why did you bring so many types of them? And why didn't you ask for metals or beast hide to draw on? Why are these large quantities? When Jabba found that what he was met with was his master's cold gaze, he coughed twice and then moved with quick steps towards the door. I will gather them immediately. 2 hours later, above the steep hill. Hey Patrick, wait. Have you been summoned to the covered training hall by Governor Alexander as well? A young man who appeared to be in his late 20s looked behind him and found another running towards him at a slow pace. Jimmy, you were also summoned. This is strange. I thought I made a mistake while on guard duty tonight. Phew, this is relaxing. No, we are not one of those who were summoned. I heard that most of the saints and sages in the colony located at the bottom of the steep hill were also ordered to come. I wonder what will happen to us. The young man called Jimmy followed his friend and began to walk beside him. I don't feel so good about this. You're thinking too much. Ha. Jimmy laughed out loud and patted his colleague on the shoulder. But the young man named Patrick shook his head. But why were we summoned? The Steep Hill Colony contains a large number of sages and saints because we are supposed to protect the headquarters and the space gate. Why were we asked to leave our guard posts and gather in a place like the covered training hall? Don't you think it's strange?
Haha, relax, man.
What I think is that you are overthinking. What do you think might happen to us in the worst-case scenario? All those who received the summoning order are sages and saints, as I told you. Maybe they might send us on a secret mission behind enemy lines. Isn't that wonderful? I can't imagine the amount of points I would collect from a mission like this. I can buy a few more acres with these points. The young man named Patrick looked next to him. Aren't the 100 acres and 5 shops that your huge family runs enough for you? I still can't believe you used nearly a quarter of your points to buy power stones to bring your entire mortal family here. It was a few hundred of them, if I remember correctly. Do you want to start your own village or something? Leave something for the rest of us, damn. Ha ha ha, if you are jealous then do the same as me, you are not poor. All my life I looked at my mortal family, who lived to herd sheep and tend to the Frost family stores, as a burden. I thought that I cursed the fact that was born among them. Now look at me. I only care about amassing wealth and my family is running it happily for me. If I could go back in time, I wouldn't have chosen a better family, ha ha ha. Then Jimmy pointed forward. Oh, this is the covered training hall. The moment of truth has arrived, my friend. The two took a deep breath and looked at each other for a moment. Then their steps quickened until they entered the hall door. As soon as the two young men entered, they found the appearance of thousands of soldiers standing at attention. After they took a few steps forward and saw the serious faces of those soldiers, their sweaty foreheads, and the tight veins of their bodies, they wondered, hey, what's going on here? Why are you standing like that? The soldier whom Patrick asked did not move, did not even look next to him or open his mouth, but merely moved his eyes in a certain direction as if he was telling Patrick to look in that direction. What could be in that direction that would make you stand like that? Even if Governor Alexander himself were here, you wouldn't be acting like this. Before Jimmy could complete his sentence, his eyes went in that direction and he saw something that made him and his friend turn to attention in a split second. Their forehead quickly began to sweat, too. They saw Emperor Robin personally sitting on the ground in a meditating position. One of the soldiers swallowed his saliva out of drastic tension, and it made a sound that resonated in the covered hall as if it were a bomb. He quickly closed his eyes and his breathing quickened for a few seconds, but he forced himself to calm down again and managed to stand up straight. This was not the first incident. The sound of swallowing saliva was the only thing heard inside the covered training hall from time to time. Other than that, the 5,500 fully armored soldiers did not even dare to breathe loudly. When Robin felt the tension around him, he sighed and finally spoke. Relax a little. It won't be long. But his words did not ease the soldier's tension at all, to the point that he began to doubt himself. Is he really that scary? He doesn't recall that he punished any soldier before for them to fear him like this. After an unknown period of time, another person with an oppressive aura entered the covered training hall, with about 30 individuals wearing civilian clothes behind him. Then he began to advance towards the emperor at a rapid pace. The soldiers did not have to see who he was to guess that the person at the head of this group was Jabba, the emperor's only disciple, and those behind him appeared from their luxurious clothes to be rune masters. Master, I have brought what is required. We salute His Majesty the Emperor. Robin opened his eyes, then he stood up and gestured towards the rune masters bowing toward him to raise their heads. Then looked at his disciple. You are late. I told you yo gather these ingredients and come here before me, and here I'm the one waiting for you. Ahaha, sorry, but I couldn't help it. The quantities were too much to gather within a short notice. Here you will find everything inside. Jabba laughed it off and extended his palm where he should 5 space rings. Robin nodded, and with an unhurried move, he took 2 of the space rings and left 3 in Jabba's hands. Keep those, you will need them. Then he, in turn, took out several scrolls of his own space ring and handed them to Jabba. Jabba opened the first scroll and raised his eyebrows in amazement. The scroll contained designs for 5 different and strange rune designs. Even with his eye of truth, he was unable to determine to which law these runes belonged. But he noticed that at the end of each rune, there was something that looked like a tail that could be connected to the runes next to it. Jabba raised his eyes to look at his master again, waiting for an explanation. And Robin did not leave him waiting, as you saw. Each of these scrolls contains 5 designs for runes that I thought of while working on the 4th stage of the Heavenly Laws, with a total of 25 different designs. I want you and the rest of the rune masters here to draw a rune of them on each saint-level soldier here randomly. But all the runes need to be drawn equally among them, meaning that each rune of the 25 must be drawn on 200 saints. Do you understand me? As for the runes of the sages, they are much more complicated, so I will handle them myself. Will this increase their power or conceal them or something? Pardon the question, but I feel that the runes are incomplete and I don't see any benefit from them. Jabba took another quick glance at the scroll in his hand, clearly not convinced. We will see about that at the end, won't we? Robin showed a smile and patted Jabba's shoulder. Let's get going. We have a lot of work ahead of us. Yes. Although Jabba still did not understand exactly what they were going to do, he shrugged his shoulders in resignation, then looked back at the soldiers. Did you not hear, His Excellency, your worms? You will have runes drawn from His Excellency's personal designs. Why are you still standing there like fools? Come on, take off your clothes. Present. In an instant, the 5,500 soldiers began removing their armor and their clothes from underneath them with unparalleled enthusiasm. Even the women among them forgot for a moment that they were standing among thousands of men, and they almost took off their clothes fully as well. Anything related to runes is very expensive, even putting aside the offensive divine tattoos that have astronomical prices. Even the high-level talismans are rare and very few of them can buy 1 or 2 of them. But now they will receive a rune designed by His Excellency for free. How could they not be excited? This was especially true for the sages whom His Excellency will personally draw their tattoos. Now all the saints are coming on this side and the sages are on that side. Move. Jabba shouted again, momentarily seeming to regain his former function as a general. Planet Nahari, Northern Region, midnight in the heart of the capital of the Azul tribe. Damn. Boom. A Nahari giant kicked a pebble on the ground so hard that it smashed the wall of a nearby house. Damn it, my precious wall. What bastard did this? I will rip you apart. A male giant came out of that house and started shouting. I did it, do you have a problem? Come and bite me if you have one. The person who kicked the pebble took a few steps forward and released his aura, which quickly reached the beginning levels of the Sage Realm level of strength.
I'm sorry.
Thank you so much for changing the decor of my house. The giant who owned the house bowed several times and entered again, closing the door behind him. Even the remaining few giants in the street dispersed quickly until no one remained except the man who kicked the pebble and 4 individuals around him. Mahubal, calm down. This is not a place where we can do as we please. We are still within the territory of the Azul tribe. One of the remaining giants patted the shoulder of the giant named Mahobal and spoke with furrowed eyebrows. Damn the Azul tribe. What can they do to us, the sons of the Northern Bazuna tribe, huh? Force us to pay for the wall. I will gladly pay. The angry giant kicked another pebble, destroying a new wall. We should calm down and think about what we should do. Which one of them will we go to this time? One of the giants asked. Mahopal looked back and shouted. I'm not going to anyone else. Don't you see what's happening? We've been searching for one of the Ashira tribe's emperors for over a year now, but to no avail. Even after we heard about the monarch of the 9 Suns' presence here for some reason and traveled a huge distance for him, we found that he had left as well. Where the hell did they all go? Or are they all refusing to meet us? Are they looking down on us or something? How can they refuse to meet with us when we are one of the largest suppliers of stolen goods that fill their warehouses? And how would they dare to look down on the Northern Bazuna tribe when we are just as strong as them? No, there is another reason. I think that since they all refused to meet with us, it seems that they became arrogant and want to reduce the prices at which they buy our goods. We must report this situation to His Majesty. Another giant spoke with sparks shooting from his eyes. They had wasted almost a year tracking down the Ashira tribe's emperors to make a huge deal with them as usual. But whenever they got close to one, they found him not here at the moment or unavailable. Even the 9 Suns monarch, who usually cared about such matters, seemed as if the ground opened and swallowed him as well. Yes, let us go back and inform His Majesty. It is better that we start our own auctions and abandon the fools from the Ashira tribe. Another giant announced his approval. The giant named Mahobal took a deep breath and slowly began to part his forehead. "TSK, there is no other solution. Let us go back. But I do not think that any of their majesties would agree to start our own auctions. The problem is that our tribe does not want the bad reputation that comes from selling these suspicious goods. The Ashira scum are good at carrying this kind of bad reputation and why they Suddenly, the ground beneath the giant's feet split open, and dozens of arms made of rocks extended toward their necks. "Get back." Boom! The rocky arms succeeded in arresting 3 of them and then pulled them underground quickly. As for the strongest of them, called Mahobal, he managed to destroy 3 of the arms and quickly jumped back until he moved away from the huge gap in the ground and pulled with him the closest giant. Of his companions, "What the hell is going on?" The giant Mahobal shouted as he saw the rocky hands being pulled into the ground again and the gap in the ground closing in on itself. He quickly raised his hand and gathered all his strength, then sent one fist after another towards the ground. After a little hesitation from the impact, the other giant followed with him, took out the axe hanging on his back, and started attacking the ground as well, trying to get their companions back. The sounds of shouts and explosions were very loud, but no one dared to open a door or window to see what was happening, as just a few minutes ago they had seen for themselves how crazy those 5 giants were. Also, no one wants to be a victim of the angry ghost. Boom! The attacks of the 2 giants continued for several seconds, but the ground had already coalesced again by now as if nothing had happened. And no matter how hard they tried to smash the ground, they found nothing but more dirt and rocks. It seemed as if his 3 companions had vaporized into thin air. What was this? What was that? No. It's the angry ghost. It's the angry ghost. We have to get out of here. The giant who was carrying the axe threw it aside and began to slowly move backward with a trembling body. Then suddenly he turned his body and began to run at full speed. But he did not go far, as suddenly one of the lampposts in the street moved like a snake and wrapped itself around the giant. Then the ground beneath it opened and the lamppost disappeared, along with the giant, with a scream that shredded the ears. When Mahobal heard the scream and saw his friend disappearing into the ground as if he were standing on quicksand, he took 2 reactive steps back and looked around frantically. Who is there? What the hell do you want from us? I can give you everything you want. Just stop this madness already. The only answer he received was that all the lampposts around him attacked him like snakes finding prey, and even the reinforced bricks that made up the road crept out and caught his feet. Mahobal hit his foot without mercy, crushing his fingers. Then he ignored the pain and jumped away from the attack of the lampposts. It was clear that he had a wind or lightning type offensive divine tattoo because his speed was unreasonable. After he covered a decent distance and was able to avoid the obstacles in his way, he was sure that he could escape alive, so he looked behind him and shouted, "Don't think this is over. Wait until I tell His Majesty. You are dead. Do you hear me? You will be dead even if we had to flip this city upside down." At this moment, the giant collided with something that stopped him immediately, something that made him feel cold in all his limbs. When the giant slowly looked forward, he saw a short person with an ugly face so full of scars that the left part of his cheek was almost non-existent. Even he, the giant Mahobal, who was killed until the rivers turned to blood, had to admit that he had never seen such cold eyes in his life. Then he looked down and found 2 short swords piercing his chest. UHMM. Before Mahobal could say another word or raise his hands to throw a punch, several other individuals came up behind him, bound his arms and legs, and gagged his mouth. The scarred person let go of the 2 swords and allowed the giant to fall to the ground as he tried to scream in pain and terror. The scarred person merely gestured towards his companions coldly. "Well done. Return to your positions." Small gusts of wind formed around their bodies and they disappeared in the blink of an eye. As for the scarred person, he went back and grabbed the gagged giant by the back of his neck and returned to the same direction from which the giant was running away until he settled inside an empty narrow alley and threw him again on the ground. Then he raised his face and began speaking to the wall. Take him to your place and do what you have to do. He still has his life intact. The ground beneath the giant opened again and began to slowly swallow him, ignoring his muffled, terrified screams. Then the stones that formed the wall in front of the scarred person began to move and stand out until they formed a face, and the face began to speak. I have troubled you with me, third brother. I did not mean to involve you in my affairs. Richard, I don't want to hear you say such foolish things again. Your affairs are mine too. Now will you explain to me why you risked everything you had been building for years? Your victims were always alone or at a level you could easily handle. Why did you suddenly raise the scale this time? Do you know what would have happened if this giant had managed to escape? The scarred person, or peon, put his hand behind his back and spoke reproachfully. The stone face showed a worried expression, as if it were a child being pampered. You know that I need those captives to absorb more life energy to strengthen my army. If I wait until I take the life energy out of one giant every few months as I used to do before, I will never accumulate enough to escape. Byun furrowed his distorted eyebrows. And when did I tell you to stop what you are doing? On the contrary, ever since Theo left to take care of the Shadow Sword's affairs and I took his place to protect you, I noticed 1 or 2 giants disappearing every day around your house. And then the rate began to increase until at least 1 giant disappeared every hour. When I investigated the matter and noticed that you were the one doing this, I offered to hunt for you whoever you wanted so that you would not risk exposing yourself. You were refusing help from me and the rest of the Wind team, but today you risked everything and attacked a large group, and one of them was too strong for you to deal with him from such a great distance. Don't worry, brother. My circle of influence now extends for a kilometer in all directions. And in this city live more than 10 million giants, who can link the events of the disappearance to me. You were able to guess that I am the kidnapper only because you have knowledge about the life fire capabilities and because you are watching the surroundings of my house day and night. No one else would have ever linked these incidents to me. The stony face showed a gentle smile. Peon pointed at the stone face and shouted, Nonsense. Maybe this was in the beginning when you were kidnapping 1 to 2 a day. Could have been said that they left the city or died fighting with the gangs or something, but how many have you kidnapped so far? Not less than 10,000 giants, right? And they are all strong Heavenly Laws users as well. Your actions spread like wildfire and search teams came from everywhere to search for the cause. The Wind Blades and I were forced to spread a rumor about the presence of an angry ghost that hates the Azael tribe and trying to harm them. Some of them believed the story and they began to bring charlatans and wizards, and some others are still trying to pursue you up to this moment. But you give them false evidence to lead them away or simply kill them. The stone face smiled. Byun's anger calmed down a little and lowered his hand. I can't understand you anymore. The stone face's eyes went slightly to the side. Honestly, when I heard them talking about being from the Bazuna tribe, I thought that their disappearance here would create a rift between them and the Azael tribe. I couldn't resist the idea. Your hatred for the Azael tribe is rooted in your heart, but you are too smart to be blinded by this hatred. Did you know that we would help you if things got out of control? Also, you knew what we were doing to cover for you the whole time and you didn't say anything. Did you finally decide to use the help that your father sent you? Byun was a little happy. The stone face remained silent for a bit. I owe you and him one. Aha, so you are a stubborn little bastard. Peon shook his head, then looked back at the stone face again. So tell me, when will you gather enough life energy to escape? I see that currently you can revive the ground around you for a kilometer and smuggle alive people underground. Doesn't that mean that you can escape now? What is stopping you? If you're worried about being monitored by the martial emperors of the Azael tribe, I can contact Theo and set up an incident to distract them long enough for you to escape. What do you think? Yes, I can escape anytime I want, but I won't do it like this. I still have unfinished business here. The stone face spoke sternly. Thank you again, third brother Peon. I may need your help again soon. Peon stood with a stunned face as he watched the stone face disappear. Unfinished business. Is it possible that this boy is thinking about getting revenge on the Azael tribe by himself? 6 days later, above the steep hill inside the covered training hall. After finishing the last touch on a saint's shoulder in front of him, the rune master fell on his knees, looked up, and began gasping for air with a loud voice as if someone had been keeping his head underwater for the past hour. Then he started laughing hysterically. Ha! Ha ha ha! I finally did it. I have finished my quota. I have, but suddenly he fell on his face as his eyeball rolled up, and he fainted from extreme exhaustion. The weird thing is that no one was surprised to see him faint like that. The saint in front of him just sighed, picked up the rune master, and placed him near a wall next to a few others like him. This was not an uncommon sight, but the entire covered training hall was full of bodies lying on the floor or leaning against the walls. They were all rune masters. The rune masters who had entered so splendidly, wearing clean, expensive clothes with their noses raised sky high. Now all of them looking like beggars lying around with their clothes stained with sweat and ink. With how weak they looked right now, it seemed that even a random child from any colony could kill them all with a stick. Not far away, Robin was sitting in the same spot as before, his eyes fully focused as he drew something on the shoulder of a man in front of him. This peculiar divine tattoo seemed noticeably larger than the rest, and the person himself did not look ordinary either. The sage sitting in front of Robin was middle-aged, with sharp features and long hair, a thick beard, and a visible scar dividing his beard on his right cheek. His strong aura suggested that he was at the very least at the top of the sage realm. This man was undoubtedly one of those who bought a copy of one of the 4th stages of the laws. I have finished too. Robin showed his white teeth with a smile. Your name is Julian Barnett, right? Come on, put on your armor and take a quick rest. You will be a vital part of the experiments we are about to begin. It seems that drawing the divine tattoos on the saints has also finished. Excellent. It seems that I was the last to finish. Not bad at all. I will admit defeat this time. Then Robin stood up and looked around with satisfaction, then nodded with a smile and spoke in a loud voice. All of you listen up. Whoever is not wearing his armor should wear it. Then stand in a square-shaped battalion and arrange yourselves so that all those who have the same tattoo stand next to each other. As for the rune master, please evacuate the hall or watch from the side so you don't get hurt. Yes. A loud shout shook the hall and everyone started moving immediately. Sage Julian also stood up and bowed towards his emperor. Yes, your excellency. Then he took a few steps backward before he began to put on his armor. Although he did not know which experiments he would begin, he had to do as he was told. But the strange sight around the sage caught his attention. The sages were in their own section on the side, completely focused on his excellency and the divine tattoos that awaited them. Julian in particular did not take his eyes off his excellency for a moment or care about anything else, so he did not know what was happening around him. But looking around now, even with the commotion going on in the hall right now, he couldn't help but notice that the roughly 30 runes masters were all looking completely exhausted, one could even say clinging to life, and even the emperor's only disciple, Jabba, was standing on the side with his shoulder leaning against the wall, breathing with some difficulty. Of course, this is not very strange since it is a known fact that drawing runes drains the soul force, and these rune masters have been working extra hard over the past few days to please his excellency. If not, the runes on the 5,000 sages would have taken much longer. The rune masters are not random people fished from the street, but rather, they are all soul geniuses searched for and cared after, especially those who Jabba brought with him. They are all sages or at the top of the saint realm. All of them are elites and recognized geniuses among geniuses. When it comes to soul power, they are much stronger than their peers, and yet this happened to them. And here comes the really strange thing about the matter, which is that His Excellency had to draw 500 divine tattoos on 500 sages, and these divine tattoos were much bigger and more detailed than the ones on the saints. While each of these rune masters had to handle only 150 saints each and reached this bad shape, His Excellency did not even sweat from start to finish. His hand did not stop for a single moment during the past days or take a break. Then he casually says that he admits defeat because he is the last to finish. After those words, Julian saw the rune masters shaking their heads weakly with self-retical smiles, as if they wanted the earth to open up and swallow them. The difference was simply too great. Julian couldn't help but glance at His Excellency one more time, before quickly putting on his armor again. This time he was the one sweating. The covered training hall was so wide and so solid that it could withstand a real fight between several sages with enough space to move and fly freely, but it was still not wide enough to easily accommodate more than 5,000 people, especially since they were moving like headless chickens as each one tried to find his team who have the same tattoos as him. However, as trained and highly experienced soldiers as they were, it only took them a few minutes to carry out orders as the 500 saints and sages stood in a standard square formation. "Your Excellency, where do I stand exactly?" Sage Julian came forward and bowed before Robin in awe. Even after a few minutes had passed, he did not find another person with the same tattoo as him. "You will stand in front of them, of course. Every battalion needs a leader, right?" Robin patted Sage Julian on the shoulder and laughed, then pointed to him exactly where he was supposed to stand. "Me. I will fight for your Excellency until my very end." Sage Julian could not contain his happiness that had been appointed as a commander by the Emperor himself, so he bowed again and then moved forward with quick steps to take his position, literally ready to lead this battalion to death if necessary. Deep inhale, Jabba managed to regulate his breathing again and stepped forward to stand next to his master. "So, what are you going to do with all of these?" The stress is still evident in him since he finished drawing his share of the divine tattoos on 150 saints and then helped the rest of the rune masters draw several people in their teams as well so that they could finish quickly. Even though he did not know how many tattoos he had drawn, the number was definitely not less than 300. "You'll see, just prepare yourself because you will test it yourself." Robin gave a chuckle. "Ah, test what?" Robin smiled and did not answer again. Then he turned his attention forward again and shouted, "Let's begin. My words now are directed to all of you except Sage Julian. Close your eyes now and enter a state of meditation. Do not worry about anything or think about anything. Then start circulating your energy through your body at full speed and passing it through your tattoos once every second. Do this in sync 10 seconds starting from now. Ready? Begin." Without having to respond, the 5,000 saints and 500 sages immediately closed their eyes and began counting down in their heads. Silence. After the 10 seconds were up, Jabba noticed something strange happening. The covered training hall, where only a little light entered, began to gradually light up until he was forced to put his hand over his eyes. The battalion of soldiers in front of him was covered with a silky layer of golden color that was very bright and very hot. This layer began to increase little by little until it seemed as if the soldiers were drowning under a sea of gold water. No, this golden sea was extremely wild and sizzling hot as if a sun had melted. The rune masters who preferred to remain inside the covered hall could no longer bear the pressure. Some of them clutched their chests in pain and quickly fled outside. As for the stronger ones, they extended their hands forward and created an energy shield to relieve the pressure and heat on them. They wanted to see the result of their fatigue throughout the 6 days, no matter what the price. But the strangest thing happened. The smell of burning flesh immediately filled the covered hall as the rune masters who extended their hands with energy shields to stop the sea of golden lights advanced towards them had their skin burned as soon as the contact occurred. Yes, contact. That dense golden light was not just a shape. The sage-level rune masters who tried to stop it felt as if their hands had touched oil due to its intensity. This feeling. Jabba furrowed his eyebrows and took 2 steps forward, forcing himself to look again towards the sea of light. "Okay, that's enough." Robin finally said something. "Julian, you can now follow the same instructions I gave them, but do not enter a meditative state. You must keep your mind sharp and present." "Yes," Julian replied in a pained voice. He was standing very close to the battalion of soldiers behind him, and it could be said that he was immersed in the sea of light. If it were not for his strong cultivation, which had already begun his path towards the martial emperor's realm, and his strong will that forced him to remain standing in the place His Excellency ordered him to, he would have escaped while screaming out of pain already. Deep inhale. Julian exhaled slowly to calm himself and relax his body. Then he began to follow the instructions and send bursts of energy toward his divine tattoo. Ah! Huff! Huff! The rune masters who had stayed inside the covered training hall were finally able to breathe a sigh of relief as the pressure on them eased. But their joy quickly turned into shock when they looked up. As for Jabba, his reaction was even stronger, as he quickly took a few steps forward, looking up with his green eyes and placing his hands on his head, as he shouted, "No.
Hell no.
Is that what I am thinking?
Impossible.
How did you think of something like that? How did you even gather the needed patterns to complete it? Ha ha ha, do you think that your eye is just a cheating tool for seeing patterns of laws and then writing them down? What is important is not what you see, my dear student, but how you use what you see. You greatly underestimate the capabilities of the eye of truth." Robin laughed hysterically as he looked up. He hadn't felt this proud of making something in a long time. Developing the internal cultivation system and increasing its available levels to the martial emperor realm. Modifying the divine tattoo system to suit humans. Reviving the craft of creating divine weapons. All of these were great achievements, but he was just a developer. Someone who found a building that had been standing for years and decided to build a new floor or repairing the existing floors. No matter how hard he worked for it, he will never that this building is his. As for what he sees before his eyes now, it is one of the few innovations that he thought about and created from scratch. It is the juice of his research throughout these years, the crown jewel of his achievements. What a strange feeling. Sage Julian raised his hand and scratched his head. He felt a huge energy surge for a moment that made him lose the feeling of his body. Then in the next moment everything turned black. And now he was once again in control of his senses and movement, but there was still something strange. He is trying to look around to look for His Excellency or the battalion that was behind him, but there are only metal plates stacked right above his head. Did he do something wrong and get imprisoned in this small place? Hey Julian, is everything okay up there? Julian heard something that made him look around more. Perhaps he would find someone to ask him why he was imprisoned here. Hey, look down. Julian looked down as the speaker asked, to find a very strange sight, Your Excellency. What happened to you? What happened to my voice? Wait, is that my body down there? When he looked down, he found His Excellency looking at him proudly with a big smile from ear to ear, and he saw His Excellency's disciple, Jabba, looking at him drooling in shock, as if he had seen the largest jewel in the world. But the strange thing was that they both had become the size of a mouse. What happened was that the sea of golden light that had almost destroyed the covered hall began to change rapidly after Sage Julian activated his tattoo. Instead of expanding to the sides, the sea of golden light began to shrink from the sides and extend upwards. Then limps began to emerge into that sea of light, and human features resembling Sage Julian appeared. Within just a few seconds, that viscous sea of light transformed into a 25-meter-tall humanoid. That's the height of an 8-story building. Haha, it's not what happened to us, my friend, but what happened to you. Robin laughed loudly as he watched his favorite artwork. Hey, I want you to calm down. Since the experiment has been successful, I will explain everything to everyone in detail, but first I want to test your strength a little. Are you ready? Julian is always ready to serve Your Excellency. The giant raised his hand and hit his chest. Although he did not fully understand what was happening, this was definitely a result of the runes they had received. This is the spirit required. Robin clapped excitedly, then looked over and slapped his disciple on the back. Go play with him. At the same time, the space portal located on the steep hill. When the space inside the gate began to become turbulent, a few sages in charge of protecting it stepped forward in a defensive position. But when they saw the person who came out, they saluted, "We welcome Governor Alexander," but their tongues were tied and their hearts trembled when they saw the person. No, the thing that came out after him. It's not as if they had never seen a demon before. The same crimson skin filled with dark scales, the same long white hair, the spiral horns that pointed upwards, and the same face devoid of everything except a mouth full of sharp teeth. This thing was a monster like the rest of them, but this one in particular was different. The aura of this demon is unnaturally stifling, and even they, sages, had their words crammed into their mouths when they saw him. Physically, he does not resemble the rest of the demons either. Rather, he is clearly taller than his peers. In fact, his height is at least 3 meters, nearly as tall as His Excellency's disciple Jabba before the Battle of the Warlords. As for Alexander and that terrifying demon, they began to advance toward the closed training hall, completely ignoring the guards. Then Alexander spoke with furrowed eyebrows as he put his hand behind his back. If you had come when I asked you, would you have met this situation? It's not as if I wanted to harm you, but rather I wanted to give you techniques that would strengthen you. Look what happened now, you have angered His Excellency. The Lord is wise. The Lord is merciful. The Lord will understand the situation. The demon spoke in a harsh, chilling voice. I hope so. Although I do not want to be an enemy to monsters like you, you must understand that everything depends on one word from His Excellency. Do not try to test him too much or you might regret it. Alexander spoke seriously, but the demon responded with an ugly smile. The Lord is wise. The Lord will not choose this path. Boom! At this moment, when the covered training hall was within sight, a person was thrown out of it like a cannonball. The demon moved quickly before Alexander could react and caught the projectile person spitting out blood. With a quick inspection, the demon opened his mouth again to speak. Are you Lord's disciple Jabba? How did you become so short? Jabba wanted to open his mouth to say something, but poof, a significant amount of blood spurted from his mouth. Jabba, who the hell could do this to you? What happened? And where is His Excellency? I left him with you. Alexander ran next to them and asked in panic. The Lord is with him. Where is the Lord? Speak. The demon lifted Jabba by the collar until his feet no longer touched the ground and shouted to him. Jabba wiped the blood off his face and almost punched the annoying demon with the bad breath away. But a strange smile suddenly appeared on his face as he pointed towards the hall. He's there. The golden giant inside the hall wants to kill him. Go and save him quickly. The Lord must be protected. The demon threw Jabba and rushed toward the covered training hall. Your Excellency. Following the demon, the wind gathered around Alexander and he almost rushed forward as well. But Jabba's hand suddenly extended and grabbed his arm. So he looked behind him and shouted loudly, What are you doing? Let me go. I might not be as strong as you or that demon, but I need to help. This isn't something you can middle in. Cough, cough. Jabba coughed up some blood again but managed to get back to his feet. And there's no need for you to help anyway. What do you mean there is no need for help? What is happening in the covered training hall? Did a tree father launch a surprise attack? Alexander asked in shock, but his expression showed some ease. He knew how much Jabba loved his master and heard about that one time when Jabba renounced his tribe to follow Robin. So his speaking so calmly meant that the situation was at least not as bad as he thought. Just wait, what's the problem if you wait a little bit? Jabba patted Alexander on the back and leaned on his shoulder. Keep your eyes on the hall. You will witness a lovely scene in 3, 2, 1. Boom! Another hole appeared in the ceiling of the covered training hall in a familiar scene. The difference was that this time the one who caused the hole was the demon who had entered a short while ago. Jabba pointed towards the demon and laughed out loud, but Alexander moved quickly and created a wind pillow in the demon's path to slow down its speed until it stopped, and then shouted in shock, What the hell is going on in that hall? At this moment, the metal wall of the hall began to crack and fold like paper, and a giant appeared behind it, taking on a human form and shining golden. The sudden appearance of the golden giant and the sound of his steps shaking the ground attracted the attention of everyone on the steep hill. The headquarters staff closed the windows and doors on themselves and activated the defensive arrays. The development team members came out of their own building to observe what was happening. The sages and saints on guard raised their weapons and left to besiege the giant intruder. Everything was turned upside down in an instant. Whoever attacks the Lord will die. The demon also stood up and ran back to the golden giant with an almost palpable killing intent. Halfway through, his hand began to extend until it became twice its size. Then its shape mutated to take the shape of a cleaver, and then he jumped on the giant without a bit of hesitation, like he totally forgot what happened just a few seconds ago. Robin's eyes lit up for a moment when he saw this change and felt the power behind the demon's attack. His smile visibly grew, but he remained silent, watching. The golden giant let out a war cry when he saw hundreds of saints and sages trying to surround him and pelt him with attacks. His shout alone was enough to push back the relatively low-level saints. Then a strange scene occurred. The giant moved his hand in a certain way, and a huge ball of flame appeared in front of him, and around him countless small fire pills took shape. Those small pills rushed towards the saints and sages, hitting them all in the middle of their chest and causing them to fall to the ground, writhing in pain, arghh. As for the huge ball of flame, it rushed towards the demon and sent him flying again. But this time the demon was able to cut the fireball in half in the end without sustaining any injuries and returned to jumping towards the golden giant once more. As for Jabba and Alexander, they did not move. Whenever Alexander tried to take action, Jabba would stop him in their place and tell him not to move, so Alexander was busy with something else, examining the giant's face. About a minute after the giant appeared, Alexander muttered in a low voice, "Is that Julian Barnett?" The human giant screamed again and took a stance challenging everyone. It seemed that he would not back down before he destroyed the hill with everyone on it. The fallen soldiers stood up slowly, clutching their chests. Although they did not see a way to stop the figure, they had to continue until it retreated or they themselves would die. This giant must not be allowed to reach the settlement that contains their families at the foot of the steep hill. In this tense atmosphere, a calm voice was heard. All right, you did a good job, Julian. Don't scare them anymore. Go back to the hall now." "Oh yes, Your Excellency, I will go back right away." The giant gave the military salute and then walked back towards the covered training hall again. All eyes on the steep hill followed the strange scene with their mouths open. Their eyes remained focused on the golden giant until he entered the hall and folded the metal again to close the hall as if nothing had happened. Well, everyone, go back to what you were doing. This was an exercise to test your preparedness in the face of emergencies, and you did well. Robin laughed out loud, then motioned towards Jabba and Alexander. "Come with me." He then sent a strange look toward the slightly injured demon and motioned to him, "You come too, we will talk inside." He started walking back to the hall. "Did you not hear, His Excellency? Go back to your posts, you scum," Alexander shouted when he saw everyone still standing there trying to comprehend what had just happened. He then pointed towards a limping soldier who appeared to be in pain. "Hi, you there. Don't pretend to be injured so you can avoid your duties for the day. The giant was messing with you and did not harm anyone greatly. If you don't move your ass now, I'll be deducted 10 points from your tally." At this moment, everyone regained their senses and began to run in all directions. Even the young soldier who was pretending to be injured ran like a horse. Only the demon remained standing there in stupefaction for a few more seconds before he began moving toward the hall next to Alexander and Jabba. "Hi, Lord's disciple. How did you gain this power and why did you become so short?" the demon asked after taking several large steps. "That's not very polite. Why don't you start with yourself? Tell me first, why did you become so tall and how did you gain this strength? From what I saw from you, you are not much weaker than me." Jabba shrugged and responded with another question. "I'm not weaker than you in any way, you dwarf giant," the demon corrected, then went back to silence for a few seconds before asking again. "What was this giant thing anyway? It has terrifying power. Did the Lord invent something new?" "Oh, you have an unusually large number of words in your mouth for a demon. Are you beginning to feel afraid that your standing with Master will diminish, you carrion eater? Good." Jabba laughed when he heard the demon's question. Although these things rarely show any emotion, the hesitation was evident in his voice. "The Lord will never abandon us, not without a strong reason at least. As long as we obey him and carry out his orders, he will ignore everything he hears about us from the insects that want to create a wedge between us, and he will leave us clinging to his feet." After thinking for a few moments, the goblin spoke in his hoarse voice, then looked to the side. "But the same cannot be said about your kind, you short giant." Jabba stopped in his tracks and looked at the demon seriously. "What do you mean?" My Nahari giant race are not followers of my master in the first place, so how can he abandon them? Exactly, Kakik. They are not his followers since they rejected this blessing because they could not imagine being ruled by someone from a lower race. We are often called stupid monsters, but is there anyone more stupid than your father and the rest of your kind? The demon looked up and laughed out loud. If I were you, I would stop fooling around and worry about my family instead. You know how special you are in the hearts of us demons, right? How can I describe it? Oh, it would be easier for me to repeat to you what that human said to me a moment ago. It's all about one word from the Lord, Kakik. Then he looked down at Jabba one last time, showing his ugly smile, and then walked alone into the hall, leaving Jabba standing alone with lost eyes. The first to arrive inside the covered hall was Alexander. Immediately after entering, he stood there in amazement as he saw the 500 soldiers he had gathered before leaving, still standing in their places with their eyes closed as if they were dreaming, and around them was a transparent, dome-like envelope surrounding them on all sides. Then he saw the golden giant advancing obediently to stand where he was, as His Excellency had ordered. "Stop, Julian, you're gonna crush your colleagues like that," Alexander shouted when he noticed that the giant was about to step on the soldiers. But the moment the golden giant's foot touched the golden dome, his feet vanished and turned into pure energy that invaded the dome. Then the giant continued walking above the dome as if he were floating until he reached the middle of it and then settled in his place in a military stance. Alexander looked up in amazement for a few more seconds, before he let out a long sigh and shook his head. He then took a few steps towards Robin and gave a full bow. "Congratulations, Your Excellency, on this unparalleled achievement. My concern about the weakness of the emperors of the true beginning empire was misplaced. As long as Your Excellency is present, we will never fall. Haha, this is too early, this is still a preliminary experiment." Robin laughed proudly as he looked at the golden giant, then turned his gaze to Alexander. "Secondly, do you think that I will succeed in creating warlords and not succeed in solving the problem of the martial emperors? Don't worry, it's just a matter of time before I find a solution for your case." "Warlord? You mean?" Alexander straightened his back and looked again at the giant. "And I was inspired by this idea when I saw how warlords were made and fought them. Although the process is completely different, it can be said that the basic idea is the same, which is to combine the strength of a large number of soldiers to form something stronger." Robin crossed his arms around his chest and looked back at the golden giant. This warlord was not formed by any aid from the planet spirit or in a way that harms the natural energy. Nor were the soldiers harmed in the slightest during his formation process. I created a massive array to bind the energy of a large number of targets. And then I divided this array into small pieces and drew them on the soldiers. For example, a number of saints have a part of the array that collects energy to form the right leg, and some sages have the part that specializes in materializing the bones, and others have the task of materializing the veins that transmit energy. Everything in this array is carefully calculated, and there is nothing missing or can be added. Perhaps the only thing that can be eliminated is a small part of one of the laws of the path of light to give this golden color to the energy, since it has become a distinctive mark for the soldiers of the empire, hehe. Then Robin pointed towards the giant's face. "And here comes the roll of the crown jewel, which is the huge tattoo on Julian's back. It is the heart of the array that connects all the other pieces around it. It also contains parts inspired by the divine decree incarnation technique, which I modified to create a human-shaped body that resembles the owner of the heart of the array tattoo. And another part of the tattoo allows the owner of the heart of the array tattoo consciousness to expand outside his body to control the outcome of all this, controlling a warlord made from the energy of 5,000 saints and 500 sages, with total power equal to a martial emperor unbeatable in the middle levels. No one below level 48 can stand against this warlord." "Amazing." Alexander raised his head again and looked at the warlord with a dreamy look, thinking of all the ways he could use him in the upcoming battles. By now, Jabba and the demon had also arrived at the hall. The demon merely looked at the warlord with vague expressions. No one could tell how he felt now. But Jabba wasn't as polite, so what are his weaknesses? Can't I make something flawless? Where is your trust in your master? Robin shook his head with an embarrassed smile. Yes, there are definitely weaknesses. Jabba nodded twice. So what if there are a few weaknesses here and there, you brat? This is a prototype. Robin walked up to his disciple and gave him a light slap on the back of the head. Who do you think I am to make something like this and be perfect the first time? Then he pointed with one hand towards the warlord, and with the other hand he placed it under his chin. There are things I noticed while preparing the array, but I had to make sure it was working first and then look for solutions to the issues. For example, look at the soldiers below the warlord. They are in a completely relaxed state and can't defend themselves or even escape, although I have allocated part of the array's power to protect them with an energy dome that can withstand attacks from people up to the top sage level. If one martial emperor level character attacks them a few times, he will kill them all. Then he began to take a few steps forward towards the small battalion as he muttered, Secondly, how many sages and how many saints do we currently have in our army? After a long silence, Robin looked behind him. I was not talking to myself, so please would someone answer me? Let me answer then. Alexander offered. At the beginning of the war, we had approximately 200,000 saints and 15,000 sages. But now, after approximately 10 years, we have on planet Greenland around 800,000 saints and 35,000 sages. As for on planet Jura, although the total number of law users is on the continents of the four elements, approximately 5 million, but most of them are still knights, and the numbers of saints and sages there are approximately 300,000 and 15,000, respectively. So it's safe to say that we have approximately 1 million saints and approximately 50,000 sages. Not bad at all. Robin rubbed his chin and looked back at the giant. Alexander smiled and shook his head. He didn't know what to say. More than 1 million saints and 50,000 sages are just not bad. Alexander tried to say something as a quick comparison between the state of progress of the forces of planet Jura before and after falling under the control of the true beginning empire, but he felt ashamed to mention their state before His Excellency came. And all this progress occurred in less than 15 years. Alexander let out a long sigh as he recalled memories of the recent past. If someone had told him 15 years ago that he would be appointed a governor whose power would extend to 2 planets and that he would have the power to rally millions of saints and sages at wish, he would have killed him immediately, thinking that he was a fool, that he was trying to mess with him. After a few seconds, Robin shook his head. 50,000 sages means that they are only enough to do 100 warlords. That is not enough. Master, don't forget that the warlords will all be at the top of the middle levels, roughly level 47. 100 middle emperors will be enough to dominate any battle. Jabba stated cheerfully, the hope of protecting Nahari beginning to rekindle in his eyes. Robin shook his head. They are not enough. We do not yet know the total strength of our enemies. Alexander quickly interjected, allow me to say a word here, Your Excellency. We cannot restrict all the sages into arrays like this unless you intend to engage in battles with only warlords. Robin waited for a moment and then nodded. You're right, using only warlords is neither logical nor useful. Their benefit is to stop enemy commanders. We can't just send 100 warlords and leave them swimming in an army of millions of enemies on their own. Rather, there must be an army below them that spreads and dominates the earth at the same time. 100 warlords will not be able to do anything on a planet containing billions of beings, and against another empire experienced in colonizing and destroying planets. They should be treated as an additional weapon that strengthens the current army, not a replacement for it. This is also my opinion, Your Excellency, so if you intend to use your entire army of knights, other saints, etc., there should be a number of free sages with them to help them, so of the 50,000 available, 30,000 of them should remain free with the army. Robin slammed his palm against the other. Now we have only 40 warlords left. Then he looked at Jabba. Are you happy now? What did I do? Jabba looked at Alexander and spoke in a low voice, but Alexander merely shrugged his shoulders. Then addressed Robin, Your Excellency, can't you lower the requirements for making warlords and thus increase their numbers? I mean, 5,000 saints and 500 sages is a lot. If you reduce these requirements by half, and made the resulting warlord slightly weaker but still at the martial emperor realm, for example, wouldn't that be enough? Robin waited for a moment before shaking his head. There is a minimum requirement for the array to work and form a warlord, which is 2,000 saints and 200 sages. This array will form a warlord at the elementary levels, and a weak one at that. According to the number of sages that we can allocate to the warlords currently, this means I can make 100 primary warlords. Tell me, Alexander, as a general, would you rather have 40 warlords with the strength of an intermediate martial emperor or 100 with the strength of a primary martial emperor? Alexander opened his mouth several times and wanted to say something, but he couldn't find anything to say. 40 warlords with the strength of an intermediate martial emperor could crush the 100 with the strength of a primary martial emperor without question. But the 100 would have a wider reach and help him during the battle better. As for Robin, he ignored all of this and began to walk back and forth, muttering without interruption, "I know what you are thinking. We can then divide them as the general in charge wishes. Maybe we can make a bunch of intermediate warlords like this and a bunch of primary ones to make numbers, but for now, let us rely on the current model in calculations since it is the actual power of the empire." Then he added after a short silence, 40 warlords with the power of an intermediate martial emperor. They will undoubtedly give us a foothold in Nahari, but they will not make much difference if a planetary war breaks out. According to Jabba, there are 12 tribes in the northern region of Nahari, and each of them contains exactly 27 emperors due to some kind of agreement, which makes the number of known martial emperor currently in Nahari 324 martial emperors whose levels are unknown, and of course, we cannot ignore the possibility that those tribes contain more hidden martial emperors. So it is safe to say that planet Nahari currently has between 400–500 martial emperors. What will 40 warlords do against all of these? Jabba remained silent until the end, listening, but he could not remain silent any longer and the words came out of him. "Master, I believe you meant to count the emperors in the invading forces, right? These are the ones we will be fighting, right?" Kikiki. The demon laughed lowly, but his entire focus was still on the warlord. Jabba wanted to curse the demon, but his master's voice interrupted him. "Jabba, you don't think I'll abandon my vengeance against the Northern Territory, do you?" "No, I don't think so. But there are priorities, right? Saving Nahari from destruction is the most important thing right now. Don't you think?" Jabba took 2 steps forward, looking as if he were about to plead. Robin stopped his eyes on Jabba for a few seconds as if he was thinking about something. Then he went back to walking back and forth again. Dealing with the invading emperors will be even more difficult, as the all-seeing God's rival certainly knows the extent of Nahari's strength more accurately than I do, and yet he decided to send his dogs to attack it. This is another element worth noticing is that he decided to attack planet Nahari in order to control resources and invest them in another ongoing war. This means that he does not intend to sacrifice many of his followers, otherwise victory would turn into defeat in his view. So it is safe to say that the incoming army will have sufficient forces to control Nahari and kill its martial emperors without taking heavy losses. I'm afraid they might have 1,000 emperors at the very least. Then he continued walking while shaking his head. And on our side, what do we have now? 40 warlords and 2 true martial emperors, Jabba and Alexander, and even you 2 still not complete martial emperors. And I still have to find a way for you to use the 4th stage of your laws. During the remaining 15 years, everyone must work twice as hard. There is no need to be so hard on yourself, Master. Nahari is a planet whose martial arts age has exceeded 400,000 years, while planet Jura's combat age does not exceed 60,000 years, and on top of that, the invaders are supported by information and techniques from a powerful entity. The scales are not just from the beginning. But I am confident that you can do it, you can carry out your mission and save everyone in Nahari. Only you can do it. Jabba waved both hands quickly, intending to lift his master's morale. Kakik. The demon laughed again. Is there nothing in your language other than laughter, you annoying, blushing bastard? This time Jabba couldn't stop himself. The demon completely ignored Jabba and finally moved his gaze from the warlord to Robin. Lord, why did you not count me among your emperors? Have I not demonstrated my strength before the Lord enough? Robin finally stopped. I will not count you with them until I know where the demon's loyalties lie, Morin. Why do you say this, my lord? The demon's eternal loyalty is to you alone. Morin's neck and all his bloodline are at your disposal. Morin stepped forward and shouted loudly, some panic evident in his voice. This is the Goblin King Morin we know. Alexander raised his eyebrows and looked at Jabba questioningly. Jabba shrugged his shoulders indifferently. He didn't recognize him either. Even though he had seen him a few times before, Morin's physique and aura had completely changed. But he did not care much. In his eyes, all demons were alike and there was no difference between them. Robin turned and faced the demon with furrowed eyebrows. Then why did you not heed Alexander's summons to receive your share of the law techniques? Did my appointment of him as a governor not please your lordships? Or have you become so powerful and no longer want my law techniques? The demon quickly replied with his harsh voice and strong accent that made it seem as if he was speaking another language. How dare we, Lord? Although we do not take our orders from this Alexander, we are not fools to refuse to receive your lordship's heavenly law books and give new momentum to our power. It is just that your governor was too narrow-minded and insisted that one of the demon kings be the one to receive it, and the demon kings are all busy. Is this my fault now? Don't soil my name in front of His Excellency. Those techniques are very precious and cannot be transmitted by ordinary people. And if you cannot come then, let one of our generals come to you then. If you had asked for me personally to deliver them, I would not have thought twice. Alexander quickly intervened, refusing to take even a little blame. No one can go where we are. These are orders from the Lord personally. If you have an objection, speak to the Lord about it. The goblin looked sideways. Humph. Forget about him, Alexander. He is a liar. The demon kings number in the dozens, and not one of them was free for a single day. It is just a trip through space portals that ends in a few hours, and even when you went to fetch this Morin with an imperial decree in your hand, came 6 days later. Secondly, what might make them busy exactly? They are a race similar to beasts that do not know anything except eating and reproducing. Were their administrative offices full of papers that needed to be signed? Jabba scoffed. You'd better keep your tongue in your mouth, dwarf giant, or you might get hurt. The Lord's protection may not last forever. Morin showed his pointed fangs and threatened. Robin furrowed his eyebrows and spoke seriously. Oh, do you think I'll die early or something, Morin? I don't see any other reason why my only disciple's protection would be lifted. Excuse me, Lord. I was hot-headed and didn't know what I was saying. Morin lowered his head. Don't speak at all then. Robin spoke without caring, then looked at Jabba. Will you stop too? I don't know your problem with demons, but try to curb it inside yourself. We're on the same side here. Things are not good there. We need a prolonged talk in this matter, but the demon merely said these words, then glanced at Alexander and Jabba. Alexander is the one who runs the affairs of the Empire and should know sooner or later, and Jabba is my disciple and knows about the farm planet already, so there is no need to monitor your words. Robin waved to the demon to continue. What exactly is happening on the farm? Didn't you tell me yourself that the farm planet contains a large number of demi-humans and they are all enemies to each other? Didn't you say it was an ideal environment for you? What happened now? I will do as the Lord desires then. Morin hesitated a little, but he quickly gave up and began to speak. For the first few years of our arrival on the farm planet, everything was really perfect. The number of demi-humans there is large, and there is no specific ruling system. Just tribes who love those who are similar to them and want to kill those who are different from them. If we attack 1 or 2 villages of one of the tribes, that tribe will not even know who attacked them or how many enemies they have. And even if they knew it was us and decided to confront us, they will fight us alone and no one will help them. And of course, at that time we had enough strength to battle 1 or 2 tribes at full force without any problem. Then the demons slowed down here a little. But everything changed when we asked the Lord to allow us to bring our families from planet Nahari, and the Lord agreed to our selfish request. We couldn't leave them all on the central continent where there was not enough food, so we had to bring a large number of our cubs to the farm planet to hunt their own food and to feed their mothers and elders. But the huge increase in our numbers made us attack 10 villages instead of 1, and we quickly annihilated 2 entire races. This alerted all the tribes of the farm planet against us. They saw that we had no enmity with a specific race and that we attack randomly, so they united against us. Kakik. Jabba looked up and imitated the demon's laugh. Robin leaned his head on 2 fingers and spoke before the demon cures Jabba. So after you were treated as a new race among dozens, you are now treated as a global threat that must be eliminated. The demon turned his face away from Jabba's side with great difficulty and nodded. That's right, Lord. It happens that this is the same situation as ours here. The difference is that we were put in this situation from the moment we set foot on this planet, but you managed to quietly infiltrate the planet and were placed in an ideal environment to hide and hunt wisely. Perhaps you could even make a few alliances with other tribes, but in the end, you found yourselves in the same position as us. Robin shook his head with apparent disappointment. So, what happened next? Even we with our human army were able to gain a foothold here and defend. Are you telling me that you might demons are having problems there? My lord, this is not a peer-to-peer battle, or we are fighting respectable enemies like the humans who have an organized army, lands, and known borders. Members of those tribes are accustomed to spreading out in small groups to hunt, and this is also their style of war. If we go out in an army, we will not find anyone there our way. We can even reach the main headquarters of their tribe and find it in ruins, and we find their kids and elderly people committing suicide, while the young men and women among them have fled to another place, and then they come back to attack us in the form of small groups later. They are a group of savages and their way of battle is guerrilla warfare. Morin explained quickly. They leave their homes and leave their families to die as soon as they sense danger. It seems that the concept of dignity and honor is not known to them at all. Rejoice, Morin, they are worse than dogs, exactly like you, aha. Jabba laughed again. As for Robin, he rubbed his chin for a while. What you are describing now is evidence that they have become accustomed to this type of raid and have begun to take the safest way to keep their species alive without taking into account anything else. This type of enemy is truly dangerous. Morin nodded, then continued speaking, trying to ignore Jabba's comments as much as possible. There is another thing in their favor, which is that among them are tribes that live in the mountains, and their inhabitants are distinguished by the fact that they have wings like those of birds, and they are much faster than us, even when flying, and other tribes breathe underwater and live the seas, oceans, and rivers. They also come out to attack us and then quickly return back to their safe haven. There are tribes that live underground, tribes that live in volcanoes, and others that live in the Valley of Lightning. They are all dangerous places for us, and going there gives them an overwhelming advantage over us. We could only tighten the defenses around the space portal area, and wait for attacks from them to confront them and kill the attackers, but there are simply too many of them, and the method of their attacks is so diverse that we cannot keep up with it. Whistling sound. Alexander raised his eyebrows and whistled. He really couldn't imagine being put in a situation like this. Even the massive attack of the Tree Fathers and the Human Alliance that he was thinking about day and night and preparing plans for seemed like child's play for a moment. The demon growled at Alexander when he heard the whistle, forcing Alexander to quickly look away. What next? To what extent have your losses accumulated? A kind of quiet anger took over Robin's face. His fixed features and half-closed eyes looked peaceful, but anyone could tell he was about to eat someone alive. Robin ordered the demons to use the farm planet as a literal farm forever, hunting whatever food they wanted and slowly strengthening themselves. He didn't even dare give them the order to overhunt when he was fed up and felt that the third stage of the Master Law of Truth was still too far away from him. The reason for this was that he still wanted to hold on to a semblance of his humanity. But another reason was that he knew that overhunting would bring the demon into a world war that would make their losses greater than what they gained. Morin's words were embellished to the utmost degree, even though he as a demon still had to show respect to Robin. So he came up with this story, but the result was the same. They ignored his orders and started overhunting without his permission. But what can he say? They did the same thing on the ancestral continent. They were creating problems and fabricating charges against the residents of the ancestral continent so that they would find an opportunity to prey on them. Even with the orders of the Demon Kings and Billy's intense monitoring, the number of casualties among the residents of the ancestral continent had accumulated to a terrifying degree, which is the reason for their deep hatred for Robin and his regime. They did in Robin's hometown. How can he expect them to respect his will on another planet far from his sight? We are experienced in this type of battle too, and with the help of the rune masters and divine blacksmiths assigned to us by the Lord, we were able to confront them, but they gathered themselves and launched waves at us 6 times so far, and each time hundreds of thousands were killed on both sides. Our kinsman losses, it is estimated in the millions currently, but that does not matter since the demon's reproductive rates are high and our cubs only need 5 years to reach puberty. You don't have to worry about that. The demon spoke as if the death of millions is really a weightless side thing to think about, then looked at Alexander, and during these waves in particular, we received messages requesting the presence of one of the kings, and someone here felt sad and complained because we did not comply. How do I know all this? Alexander defended himself. All this happened to you while you were among them, Mr. Emperor. TSK, it seems that the demon emperors are not that powerful. Jabba shook his head, smiling. But the bait did not work as Morin looked at Robin instead. Lord, Brother Sakar was the first emperor among us and he was able to achieve this mutation only 10 months ago. Do I understand that the war ended 10 months ago? Robin raised his eyebrows. According to what he knew about the strength of the emperors, the presence of Sakar and a handful of demon kings around him was enough to destroy hundreds of armies easily. No, Lord, after Sakar showed his new power as an emperor during the 5th wave, the 6th wave came and included 2 enemy emperors. What did you just say? Emperors? What do you mean by emperors exactly? Robin stopped pacing back and forth and looked at the demon king in shock. Jabba and Alexander also had completely changed expressions. Emperors, my lord, I mean martial emperors like me and that dwarf giant. There were 2 of them in the 6th attack wave. The demon explained as if it did not concern him. Jabba suddenly shouted when he heard this. Real martial emperors. Why did they wait until the 6th wave to show themselves? And why only 2? Is this a game to them? But the demon king completely ignored him. He wasn't in the mood to explain anything to a Nahari giant. No, this shouldn't have happened. I asked the all-seeing God for planets to grow my army, not to destroy it. Robin looked back at his feet for a moment with his eyes wide open and then began to move again. I ignored the fact that the Tree Fathers can be considered emperors because they could not move and cannot benefit from their power directly. But now even the farm planet has true martial emperors who can participate in battles themselves. What does this mean? The demon quickly raised his arm and waved when he heard Robin talking about big things. Lord, I don't know about these complicated matters, but I have to mention the full picture here before you jump into assumptions because of this lowly follower. These 2 emperors who appeared in the 6th wave were not strangers. It can be said that we know them very well. One of them is Arrow, the lord of the Lightning Bull tribe, and the other one is the daughter of the leader of the Flame Dragon tribe, and her name is Flora. They are 2 young geniuses, perhaps the same age as this dwarf giant or just a little older. They were among the first leaders to bring their followers to fight us from the 1st wave, and they kept showing up in every wave all the way to the 5th, and they even came to attack us in raids between the waves. Sakar, Amon, myself, and a small handful of the strongest among the demon kings were able to confront them and force them to retreat at that time, even though they were as peak a level of Sage Realm like us. Robin stopped again and looked at the demon. Are you saying that the 2 of them were not emperors during the 5th attack wave, and they both suddenly became emperors at the 6th? That's right, they broke into Emperor's realm right after Brother Sakar appeared among us, and there were only the 2 of them as well. The local tribes must have believed that creating only 2 emperors would be enough to eliminate the emperor on our side and resolve the war in their favor, but unfortunately for them, they were facing Sakar. The Demon King spoke proudly. Although Arrow used the 4th level of the Master Law of Lightning and Flora used the 4th level of the Master Law of Fire, Sakar is simply too strong for them. He became even more unbeatable and unbudging after he made it to the Emperor realm, in my opinion. They need to create 8 more emperors to have a chance against Sakar Kakik. The Demon King had to cut off his laughter midway when he felt the gazes sharp as knives of the trio, Robin, Jabba, and Alexander. They were all looking at him speechlessly for a few seconds as if their souls had left their bodies, and then suddenly they all exploded, each one asking a question. Alexander, according to the time period you were talking about, the difference between the 5th and 6th waves will not exceed 6 months. How is it possible that 2 martial emperors would appear in this short period of time when none of them existed before? Jabba, what do you mean that the local tribes made only 2 emperors? How can you make emperors? Robin, you say that they used the 4th stage of Lightning Path and Fire Path. Are you absolutely sure of what you are saying? Were they really using the internal energy system as your last report said? The demon pretended not to hear Alexander and Jabba, then quickly responded to Robin, of course, I'm sure my lord. Although those half-humans use strange tattoos to give them a boost in their strength. They also use the internal cultivation system as their main route. I have seen, experienced, and trained in the inner energy cultivation system for more than 3 decades. How could I overlook it? Arrow and Flora were undoubtedly using attacks from the internal energy system, and the attacks were powerful enough to wipe out entire sections of our army. It was a power that greatly exceeded the limits of the Sage's realm, so we all knew immediately that it was in the 4th stage. Even Brother Sakar was not able to defeat them or even seriously injure them, if it were not for the ability of the Blood Sea that Brother Sakar had acquired and used to neutralize their influence and force them to retreat in. The end, both of them would have been enough to wreak havoc on the entire demon army. Robin furrowed his eyebrows until they almost touched. At the farm, they can use the 4th level of laws without the problem of energy transfer. Did the people of the farm planet find the solution I was looking for? Brother Morin, as for our questions, when Alexander found that the demon was completely silent, he reminded him. The Demon King put his finger to his mouth, not giving any face to Alexander, clearly waiting for what his lord had to say. After a few minutes of deep thought, Robin looked up again at Morin. Answer your colleague's questions. Yes, Lord, the answer to the temporary governor and the dwarf giant is the same, and it is that yes, there were no martial emperors on the farm planet before the 6th wave, and this is something that we are completely certain of, and yes, we have some evidence that they were created. As for how, we do not know that yet. But something happened to them that forced them into the Emperor's realm despite a large number of loopholes in their law techniques. What makes you say that? Robin asked interestedly. This is because of the prisoners of war from the villages and tribes that we have been attacking since the beginning of the invasion on the farm. They were all repeating that heaven's punishment would fall on us if we continued what we were doing, and that the world guardians would inevitably come and things like that. At first, we thought it was their way to plant doubt in our hearts. But when the Thunderbull Arrow and the Flame Dragon Flora appeared in the 6th wave, the millions of soldiers on their side began shouting excitedly. World Guardians Morin replied without the slightest change in his features or voice, as if he was narrating a distant past, connecting all these events together, with the fact that we had known Arrow and Flora for a long time and fought with them dozens of times before, made us jump to the conclusion that something had helped them in some way. Or do you think we are wrong, Lord? No, you are not wrong. There is indeed something strange happening on the farm, something that may be the key to many of the things that are troubling me. Robin tapped his chin slowly. Can you arrest this Arrow or Flora for me? This would be a little too difficult, my lord. How can a martial emperor be captured alive? Although we face major waves every few months, we are always surrounded and the fighting never subsides. If one of us tries to put his foot outside the wall that the divine blacksmiths built for us, he will find a small group of half-humans attacking him. We cannot organize a large army to go to the headquarters of the Thunder Bull or Flame Dragon tribe either, because first of all, these 2 tribes are 2 of the most powerful on that entire planet and need a strong army to attack them. And if that happened, the space portal would be in danger. Secondly, because they live in a dangerous environment that they are accustomed to, and they will have the advantage if we battled there, and they can simply disband their tribe and flee in the middle of the battle. At least Arrow and Flora will surely flee if they sense what we are up to. Demon King Morin shook his head. But if my lord must have one of them, I suggest you wait until the 7th wave. When they come to us, we can isolate one of them and capture him somehow. The 7th wave. When do you think it will be? Robin looked down for a moment, then nodded and asked. The demon shook his head. We don't know. Sometimes the waves occurred within just 2 months and sometimes a year, and in between there were smaller waves to kill a number of our families and then withdrew. So the demon kings were always present at the headquarters to confront them at any time. Even Arrow and Flora still stealthily attack from time to time, so Brother Sakar and Brother Amon stand guard all the time. Even I had to be with them, as we do not know when the 7th wave will begin and how many emperors will be in it. Amon also entered the martial emperor's realm. Happiness was evident on Robin's face. Yes, my lord, in the demon race currently there are no emperors except me, Amon and Sakar. Amon and I completed our mutation at approximately the same time, and currently, there are a number of other kings who have begun the process of evolution as well, and it will not be long before they become emperors as well. Morin nodded and showed his ugly smile. The major and minor waves put great pressure on us and killed millions of us, but they also provided us with endless amounts of corpses. Although our numbers decreased by at least half, the survivors are doubling in strength after each wave. Very soon, the development of the rest of the demon kings will begin. All of them will mutate sooner or later. Goosebumps ran down the backs of the trio at once. Alexander was the only one who opened his mouth as he looked at Robin and spoke. It seems there is no need to worry about the demons much, Your Excellency. At the very least, the development of demons is terrifying, to say the least. If the 7th wave does not come within the next few days with at least 10 emperors with them, they will lose their chance forever. I'm afraid that within a few years, the demons won't need to stay behind that wall anymore. Jabba began to sweat lightly as he remembered the words that Morin had said a while ago. The giants were never friendly towards the demons. They drove them from place to place like beasts to hunt down the lower races in Nahari, and then went to kill their cubs at night. They even killed any demon that reached a certain level of strength. They only leave one of them to be king of his tribe to control them so that they do not try to spread and it is difficult to find them. The first Heavens Chosen created the formula for invisibility powder from the demons so that the giants could avoid their evil. But the giants used it in the worst ways possible. And the demons did not forget that. In fact, it would be strange if they did. According to Morin's words, all the demon kings will begin their mutation sooner or later. According to his knowledge, there were about 70 demon kings before they left the farm planet, and this number has certainly doubled. For example, Amon was just a demon at strength level 27 when Robin found him, but he has become an emperor now. Certainly, there are other demons who rode the wave and took over the title of a king like Amon. If all of these became emperors, if all of these angry monsters gained enough power to exact their revenge on the giants, would he even have to think about the invasion at all? These things alone will expose the race of giants to the danger of extermination. As for Robin, he remained silent and did not pay attention to Alexander or Jabba. Rather, he directly activated the Eye of Truth and looked at the demon again. The demons are very strange creatures. When Robin found them in Nahari for the first time, there were demons who had the strength of a person at the level of a sage, even though they had never cultivated once in their lives, relying entirely on eating the corpses of intelligent beings. Furthermore, when Robin introduced the internal energy cultivation system to them, they were able to cultivate in this new system easily, and quite a few of them were faster than some humans. Even though they were not stronger than them in this regard, they were able to use it and they were fast enough. And it didn't stop there. When Robin drew the body-strengthening divine tattoo on them without any specific adjustment, their bodies did not reject them and they became stronger again. Now, under the Eye of Truth, everything about Morin was visible. His internal cultivation system at the intermediate level sage realm specializing in the wind path, and at the same time bearing a third-stage body-strengthening divine tattoo. This combination alone makes him capable of going up against someone like Elizabeth and Victoria. But neither this nor that was his primary strength. Rather, there was something completely different about the demons, an unprecedented system that transformed the blood of their victims into power, something special to them that even Robin had not yet been able to decipher. And what is with this transformation or mutation that Morin and the rest witnessed? He had become larger and uglier and his aura heavier. Why wouldn't this happen to humans or giants who entered the Emperor's realm? How many secrets do demons hide exactly? After an unknown amount of time, Robin nodded several times. All right then, when the 7th wave comes, I want you to send one of your followers to inform me. It seems that it is time to visit the farm. Morin did not respond directly, but waited a few seconds before opening his mouth. If the Lord is understanding and willing to see what he will see, then your visit will, of course, honor us and raise our spirits. Robin gulped hard at hearing this. These simple words from Morin made him imagine the bloody scene around the space portal right now. Hills of body parts lying everywhere and demon cubs playing around while holding the limbs of the corpses and munching happily. Robin quickly shook his head to put these fantasies aside, and pointed towards Morin. The farm may not be just a farm after today, and we may need to bring warlords into the equation if the battles exceed a certain level of casualties. Do whatever you want behind your closed doors and remove any unwanted events out of sight. Understood? Yes, my lord, we will try. Morin bowed slightly. Robin then looked at Alexander. I want you to collect the designs of the arrays I designed to protect the steep hill and hand them over to Morin for the divine blacksmiths and rune masters at the farm headquarters to work on them. These arrays will greatly reduce the number of casualties on our side there. I also want you to... Boom! At this moment, a powerful energy wave erupted inside the covered hall, forcing Robin and the rest to retreat a few steps. Then the energy wave continued its path until it exploded the ceiling of the covered hall and brought down the walls. In the blink of an eye, the covered training hall was gone. What the? Robin shouted and looked towards where the wave was coming from, and found something that forced him to quickly silence. The warlord had lost an arm and started to stagger. Julian, what's going on with you? Robin's tone quickly changed, and he flew to stand in front of the warlord's face. Your Excellency, I don't feel so good. Wise Julian spoke weakly. Then, cluck. The warlord's other arm fell and created another energy wave. Robin barely managed to defend himself against the energy wave and then shouted at Julian, neutralize the array. All of you, stop powering your tattoos immediately. Virum. Contrary to the orderly scene that Robin had imagined, which was to gradually slow down the supply of energy to the warlord until it became smaller and smaller until he disappeared. The reality is that the warlord collapsed like a pile of mud, and then the energy as it fell until it disappeared before it even touched the ground. When he looked under the warlord, he also saw an unexpected scene. The 5,500 saints and sages were all lying on the ground, panting as if they were in a race against death. Maybe if he brought a 12-year-old child knight, he would be able to kill them all now. Alexander, quickly bring a squad of life troopers. Robin shouted behind him, then quickly flew towards Sage Julian, who was in even worse condition than the rest of the soldiers behind him. Are you all right? This subordinate is fine, Your Excellency, I'm just a little tired. Julian got out the words with difficulty, and then his pupils disappeared under his eyelids and he lost consciousness.